Alright, well, let's get in here. There we go. So, lots happened last time. We learned that Chiemi can actually loop back as well. Her memories are a bit fuzzier than ours, but she has been looping a lot longer than we have, and she has also confirmed that the timeline has the reset points jumped forward twice. Once when Mako came in, and once when I got in. Also, if a very specific set of guidelines are met, the world ends. And I think it has something, honestly, has something to do with Haru being hung instead of being killed by the corruption, being killed by the wolves, or being the Badger and winning with the wolves. If she's been hung, something happens. Along with the fact that Mako hasn't died in a single loop, period. It's a little weird. Sabas, how are you doing? It is a little weird now that I think about that. Mako has yet to die in any of these. But also she's a little girl, so. Well, right now we just completed Darkness, and then we went into the let's see here, I do believe it was, I think it was at start. No, was not at start. It was we just got through Dense Mist. We went through her objective, where we learned a lot about. Yep, we met Sheep, and honestly, he wasn't as helpful as I wanted him to be. He just tells me that, hey, this is the only time I'm going to be able to save you, so let's not have this happen again. So, yep, Jimmy went psycho, kept killing us, and we're just like, why do you keep killing us? You know that this is not going to end things. But I went back to every ending possible that I could have done at this point. I almost got all the keys here. I just need key 1 and 8 for this. And then there's like, yeah, a lot was going on. I just couldn't stop. I was actually getting really involved, and although my throat was killing me after reading it out aloud. But where we're currently at is we're selecting to either do a trap with Kanzo, or we are asking Kanzo about Haru, because we can actually do this now. Because we know that Haru is possessed. I do feel bad for Haru, but yeah. That's right. I just remembered. Did my memories carry over in a weird way because the method from back then was weird? Well, then again, this wouldn't be the first time memories didn't carry over properly. Maybe I should have counted myself lucky for remembering it all. I had tons of things to think about. About the beast in the village. Yeah, we have yet to do the other option according to this one. While we're stuck in the porta potty. The giant monster. Yeah, this is beyond fucked. The dream enveloping Fujiyoshi, as well as the looping the sheep had told me about. But this wasn't the time to worry about that. The old man before me was the one who survived the past tragedies in Fujiyoshi. With the old wolf guy being a pain to talk to, I had to rely on him instead. And then I learned that, yeah, the old wolf guy in the first loop killed Mochi, and then Chiemi killed the old wolf guy, and then Rikako took in her corruption, and then became the insane beast that was that next day. I also learned that. It's horrible. But how was I supposed to talk to him? It looked like there was just one way. It's me. Huh? I'm a wolf. Upon hearing that, let's see here. If I'm going to go based on who was here when the first loop started, the top one on my list would be Rikako. Because things changed when Mako came in and then when I came in. So, it's kind of weird. I'm thinking that it's Rikako, ultimately. I don't have any real solid evidence against that, though. But the times where she survived, tragedy has befallen her. I was thinking that Nosato went crazy, didn't actually hang her, but she hung herself and he just absolutely lost it. Because she failed in her mission there. That's assuming that she was supposed to summon this monstrosity. Oh, but we'll find out if I'm right. Or it could be Mako, you know? Just possessed by another god. Upon hearing that, you're a wolf. He didn't take out his gun. His expression showed nothing but total confusion. I know. From your experience, wolves never reveal themselves. Of course, the humans don't lie, so you can't even imagine why anyone would say something so suicidal. Shut it. He finally pointed his gun at me, but his lateness told me just how hesitant he was. I controlled the pace of the conversation. Revealed this because I'm someone who grew up outside the village. I'm not bound by God's curse. Not yet, anyway. Huh? You don't understand? Okay, well, just keep in mind that the feasts from before were isolated and didn't have any outsiders. Your experience doesn't apply to a feast with outsiders. Don't be so concerned, though. I mean, no harm. Sat down on the ground, extending my hurting leg forward. Shoot me if you want. Though I'm sure you're aware that a murder without the majority's approval is against the rules, even if it doesn't break the 1 per day law. I confirmed that during my looping with Chiemi. Yeah. I don't know how many loops you confirmed that with, but good lord. Get to the point. There's no point. I just feel bad for you. Huh? I had to apologize to the Kaori and Haru of this timeline. Must be awful for a grandfather to have to kill his granddaughter. I wouldn't want to be the only survivor of such an awful situation. It's too heavy a burden. That's why I came here to talk to you. What'd you just say? Must be awful for a grandfather to have to kill his granddaughter. Come on, old man, get that hamster wheel rolling. Come on. You heard me. He didn't fire, but he sent a solid kick flying at my solar plexus, knocking the wind from my lungs. You're a wolf. You gotta be lying. But why would I lie about something that important? Yes. And that's where you know that he... And it was also pointed out that's where he knows where he lies. And Chiemi pointed that out because she's looped so many times she could tell. Yeah. I didn't notice it. But now I do. Just like I didn't notice the hints that she was dropping, like in some of the other loops, besides the fact that when we first saw her in the second loop that she was tearing up as if she recognized us. That she could loop. I had a suspicion that she could either remember something or there was something more to it. But I couldn't confirm it, and I completely missed it in this, not this loop, but the loop before. When I was the snake, when she dropped the hint that we could go away in a motorcycle when I didn't even appear here via motorcycle. Like, she had known that. I did not notice that until it was pointed out. I'm just like, oh my god. I'm noticing a few things, but not everything. If that's the case, I wouldn't have to reveal myself at all. Well, I understand though. I am a wolf, and all I'm saying is true. Then why just say it? Will you get it if I say this? If you don't want to kill your granddaughter, kill everyone else. Another kick came from my face and hit my head, making me see stars. I'll hang all the wolves, even my granddaughter. Yeah, I thought you'd say that. I don't mind if you choose that. But, are you really sure? I feel like that was the bigger giveaway. Because I'm at that moment that no one's going to notice, and then she appears, and then she's the only one that notices. I'm putting my life on the line here. And it's only because I want to open up to you. But I still don't know if Haru's possession, if the god actually knows anything anything about the previous loops that are going on. I don't think they ever established that. Or he hasn't given it away. Because she's just reading my thoughts for the most part. Put my life on the line here. That's only because I want to open up to you. So could you please respond in kind? Just want to understand before I die. That's why I want to ask you something. Specifically about your experience in the previous feast. And whether you'll sacrifice the laws that have supported you or your granddaughter. Please tell me, Kanzo. I can't trust you. Of course he couldn't. But he couldn't ignore or kill me either. Let's sit down. Can't move right now, and we still have time. Silently sat down right before me, cross-legged. Conversation was slow and sporadic. He asked if I and Haru really were wolves over and over again. Well, what he was mostly conflicted about was whether or not to harm his granddaughter, after all. Thus I said this. I'm relieved. What? You actually conflicted about this. Haru didn't hesitate to murder the moment she became a wolf. Really? Yes, Kaori too. I was against it. I almost died because of it. Anyone who becomes a wolf ends up a wolf to the core. Even Haru. Why? You are human in the feast, right? Can you tell me more about them? Thus he started talking. Alright, more information finally. Participated in 2 feasts. Good lord. What a survivor, man. But as far as he knew, there was another feast before that. About 60 years ago, shortly after he was born, the mist came and many died. It coincided with World War II. Youths from both Kami Fujiyoshi and Yasumizu were drafted to the battlefield, so most of the ones who died in the feast were the elderly women and children. After that, Yasumizu, which once had dozens of people, quickly deteriorated. Deaths weren't the only cause, some just fled. Don't know much about that time, but the elders said it wasn't supposed to happen. What do you mean? No idea. They said that the wolf should never actually appeared. His explanation was so full of holes I really didn't understand. However, it seemed like until the event during the war, the Feast of the Only Purge wasn't considered a paranormal event. Most couldn't believe that the Okami had actually appeared. It shocked everyone. They began to think that they'd angered the mountain. Some of the elderly believed that Fujiyoshi blood spilled the war had awakened the wolves. Spilled in the war. Okay. Happened just 60 years ago, but greatly spread the darkness of the local superstition. Apparently, something that happened to Yasumizu at that time helped too. Kanzo just said that people were killed, and I couldn't tell whether Kanzo didn't know about the details or he found it so detestable he didn't want to say it. Whatever the case, the main topic of conversation happened a while after that. It was the other 2 feasts, the one he participated in. Also, I was very proud of myself, as other than the first 2 mandatory deaths in the Darkness Path, I actually got through the entire way down without getting a game over until the very end, where I got to meet the sheep. I was very proud of myself. I didn't fall for any trap. So I went back and fell for every trap. He said there were no mists for a whole 40 years after the feast in the war. The war ended during this time, and though someone tried to fix it, Yasumizu was in an awful state. People died, the workforce was lost, poverty became worse, some still living went to work far away from home, causing the place to deteriorate even further. However, Kanzo felt that the main cause of this awful state was the darkness of the superstition clouding the locals' hearts. Kanzo can remember how, when he was young, everyone just worked the fields with cloth over their faces, constantly afraid of something. Those clothes were an item used in the mountain festival. Their purpose was to prevent eye contact with the Yomibito. Though Kanzo himself used to keep the sun out of his eyes and prevent the game from sensing his vision. But at the core, it was an unreasonable tool born of superstition. Anyway, as the village became more and more unreasonable, the mist came. It happened about 15 years ago. At that time, Tai and Chiemi, who was still in her first year of elementary school, were participating in an event in Kami Fujiyoshi, so they ended up avoiding the incident. The 2 village heads who are in Yasumizu right now weren't here to begin with, while Takumi was already an adult working away from home. Haru was born just a year before, and since her parents were on vacation, she also avoided the tragedy. They were on a trip away from Yasumizu with a small child? My son's wife was a teacher from a nearby town. She went back to her parents. I see. I'm impressed you decided to marry someone from out of Yasumizu. She was pretty much an outsider, huh? Some complained about it, especially Taiba. You weren't against it? The opposite. I dressed easy knowing they could leave Yasumizu at this time of year. It was the only time they'd ever escaped, though. Anyway, the only ones who experienced that feast and were still alive were Kanzo and the old wolf guy. It was a feast like this one. No one wanted to hang anyone the first day. Then the wolves killed someone. You had a fake for every guardian and receiver. No one trusted anyone and then voted. Go against the rules and get the corruption. Some tried. They died in the mountain or caused they didn't shelter. The feast killed the Higuchi heir, Oribes, Yasu's, and Yoshi's dad. I heard of that. He was killed by the wolves on the first day. He was either wise enough for the wolves to see him as a threat, or they just hated him. Both were likely, but I don't care about that now. Yeah, details of that don't matter. Why would a village head come to Yasumizu? He came here by himself to make a proper watering hole. The Higuchi family fought over who'd get this dirty job. And it coincided with a feast? Was it planned? May get sent here at this time of year. You're one too. I see, but wasn't it unusual to invite outsiders at this time of year? That's true. It's also the first time a journal came to Yasumizu. The fact that outsiders were invited at all was way more suspicious than the timing of it. Anyway, about 10 people died in the feast, and Yasumizu lost a third of its population. It was awful. Kanzo was just a human without any guardian. Half the participants were old people who either experienced the last feast or were in the war. Naturally, they could make awfully cruel decisions, and some tried to go against the rules, leading to severe punishments at the hands of corruption. I couldn't do anything. Just hid from the scary stuff and didn't say a thing. The eldest there told me to watch and learn, because I'd be the one around Yasumizu if they died. He got brutalized by the wolves soon after. Who are the wolves? We only found one of the three. But the last one we hanged was a girl about as old as Toru, my son. Remember, it still gives me the chills. As she got the noose on her and fell, that well-behaved girl cursed us with the face of a demon. Knew that feeling well due to all my Lupin, but I couldn't really say it. After that, we finished up the feast. The old farts didn't like that back then, too. The old wolf guy. When they came back, I told Taiba, my son, and everyone else that there'd been an accident, but there was nothing to worry about. Little Chi was scared and got all quiet for a while. She even asked me to go with her to the bathroom at night. Takumi came back right after. Higuchi's wife was sent here with Yasu, so she had Yoshi with her. That was the first feast. I asked what happened to Yasumizu before the feast began. What do you mean? Anything big enough for the village heads to take notice. A few years before that, there had been an illness here. It was hell. Dozens died, and I was on the verge too. What else was it? Oh no. Gave everyone bad diarrhea, though. Was that relevant? What about the next feast? 8 years ago, after a bad rain, the mist came again. It started after the landslide, and the Nosato construction site buried some people. Yep, we remember that. I already knew some things about that feast. During it, the children, Tai, Kaori, were in Kamifujiyoshi, and it killed Haru's parents. Jen, one of the survivors, mentioned something about the badger, and Haru somehow survived the mist. Kanzo added more information to that. That was when Haru got possessed, so the mist wouldn't take her. Takumi had been working away from home again. Kanzo was the crow. He was absolutely certain that his son, Toru, was a wolf. My son. My son said he was the crow. Tomoko, his wife, cried as my son and I shouted at each other saying that the other's a wolf. In the end, there was a vote. He's the one who ended up hanging. Kept saying it until the end. He said he was the real crow and that I was a wolf. There wasn't a bit of lies in his eyes. If I wasn't the crow, I would have believed him. Back then, only the elders voted for him. It was really close. I almost got hanged. And someone got brutalized that night. And Tomoko, thinking I was a wolf, tried to kill me at night and got the corruption because she didn't shelter. Next morning, the mist cleared. What? It cleared though you didn't do anything after the brutalization? Haru's parents' final moment sparked some emotions for me, but I had to comment on that. Was it really a brutalization? Are you sure the wolves didn't mess up and suffer the corruption? No, it was a clean axe kill. How many wolves did you kill until then? 3? Only my son. I was the crow, so I knew. Mist clear with 2 wolves still alive? That was supposed to be impossible. The feast rules didn't allow that. Wolves could only die during the day, and since one of them killed someone during the night, the wolves had to be alive. Yet the mist cleared despite that? That was supposed to be impossible. Or maybe it was unnatural to assume that the mist, a natural phenomenon, was directly linked with the feast, a man-made one. The mist was actually somehow controlled by humans, then maybe it wasn't unlikely for it to clear due to some mistake. Makes sense that happened this time. It also explained the Gen thing. If he had been a wolf and accidentally survived, it would solve the contradiction of Kanzo, a human, still being alive, while a wolf is still able to leave that crucial bit of info. There was a way to control the mist. It probably wasn't linked to the control of the loop. Still, maybe useful if you kept this in mind. What about Haru? I only know what I heard. She might have entered Yasumi's the evening my son was hanged, but no one saw her. Now the mist cleared after that, right? Had the mist cleared because of God? So the mist ended there. And I called Takumi to help clean up. Then Haru became weird. I told her it was an accident. That her parents got lost in the mist and fell off the cliff. I couldn't say it. I couldn't tell her that her dad was a wolf and that her mom got torn apart, right? Kanzo was unusually talkative. The strange wolf before him made the rough, silent old man reveal things he'd wanted to take to his grave. You were right to do so. Still, the girl lost her parents. So she got weird. Wolf possession, right? That's one thing. She'd also been a good, cheerful girl that made her all edgy and selfish. She started wearing those clothes, and I still carried around the bottle she had with her at the time. I'm not sure about that. Huh? I don't know about possession, but I feel like the changes in her behavior and taste are just your imagination. Maybe it's only because you built a wall between you and her, and she just did the same. Don't act like you know. I probably know more than you do, old man, at this point in time. I do. We're both wolves. I saw glimpses of her true personality. You'd be surprised how honest she is. I'd almost call it greedy. She's a good, honest girl who takes in whatever she hears and matures like the teen she is. I'd call her talented just for that. I could honestly call her a good girl, a good person. If it weren't for the situation, I'd ask to be in a relationship with her. She's that charming. She's too young for you, man. Way too young. Then there's you. You are afraid that she might find out the truth, so you distance yourself from her and refuse to give her anything. Right, Kanzo? He didn't get mad at me. He just cast his eyes down. This wasn't the energetic, strong hunter I knew, but an old man caught in the throes of regret. What a shame. It was so sad that this would become nothing but a dream. This exchange, that could perhaps remove the wall between the old man and his granddaughter, would be gone. Oh well. I'd have to solve it all anyway. I'd try to fix their family relations too. It wasn't necessary for Haru and I to be wolves for my words to resonate with him. Out of the 3 wolves, only my son. I was the crow, so I knew. She started wearing those clothes and still carried around the bottle she had with her at the time. I wonder what that bottle was. I'll solve a few more mysteries. This was a good time to end it. Now, Kanzo, you need to go back. Everyone's worried. Give me your shoulder. I'll take you. What are you saying? Your only choices are killing the wolves or betraying the humans and killing them. That's why you can only kill me or leave me here and kill everyone else. Right? I know full well that Haru is important to you, but so are the others, right? If you kill Kaori, Haru, and I, you'll win. With this minimal casualties. By vote or by bullet, I'm sure you can do that. The Orbe brothers, Takumi, the elders, the village heads are blameless here. That's why you have to decide right now. Don't act like you care about whether the feast happens today. Well, I know that you'll suffer the corruption if you don't get the others to agree. But I'm sure that you'll choose to massacre either the humans or the wolves, even if it means getting the corruption. Dying for Haru is an option, so is killing Haru, but surviving yourself, and I know you won't pick either option. I don't get it. What are you after? Would the sheep get mad at me if I said I just want to die quickly and naturally move on to the next time? Probably. That was the absolute truth. But the thing I really wanted to say now was, Kanzo, I need you to be a good person. Please do what you believe is right. With that done, I closed my eyes. After a long period of hesitation, I heard a metallic sound come from his rifle. His breathing was already steady. He'd made his decision. It'd be bad for me if I just died here and there was no loot. However, I did find it so sad that this man's resolve would become nothing but a dream. Alright. There we go. Key 19, Hunter's Confession. Alright. Now I gotta find where Key 19 goes. Bad ending number 22. I wouldn't say this is a bad ending. This is a proper ending I needed. You did, Chief. You attained Key 19, one of the final keys. Let's sum it up and get right to the next hint. Had I known that the hints were going to be this entertaining, I would have done this earlier. Killed by Kanzo's first and last shot. History of Yasumizu was cleared up here, mostly about the previous two feasts. Her secret was alluded to as well. This information is necessary to combat the evil that lurks in Yasumizu, but that's a bit of a grueling story. Anyway, if you haven't gone yet, why not go and try to 5Q How to Pass Time for a spin. Get up the lock there with key 20, the first of the keys you got, and take a breather by having a nice chat there. Yeah, I already did that one. Okay, that's time for it. Die another hearty death next time. Yeah, I already talked to her, to the reporter lady about the occult, so we're not going to do that again. Alright, where can I go to next? Dense Mist. Our objective, we already did that. I need key 8 for that one. Okay. Next, anything here? The answer to that is no. Okay. Wit. What else can I do over here on this side? Key 20, got the occult talk. Okay, got all that, got all that. 15, yeah, got all that. Oh, good lord. I'm gonna have to really go everywhere. 19. Can I go to the other side of this one? Then, is that it? No, I need key 8. Okay, so. Yeah, I had to turn the game sound down, mainly because, sorry, just turned it back up. I turned it down because one of the other games I was playing, the sound problem wasn't as bad. So I can actually, so I actually had to turn it down for my voice to catch a little bit easier. Alright, so maybe it's under infiltration. Okay. 23. Yeah, it's right here. This is the one. First, I had to check if the place was even usable. Equipment materials were all good, and the only thing you know here was the sink on the wall. The floor was cold and a bit sandy. With a big clean futon could be a decent living space. Yeah, we already did that. Talk to Kiona. 3 and 20. There we go. As you're typing that, I managed to find it. It's like, I will go through every chapter and scroll down and just see where there is a point I can unlock. That moment, my head was flooded with information. Yeah, flooded with all this shit. Felt like my mind was crushed by a million sheep. It kinda was. Crap, why'd I forget? Did my memories carry over in a weird way because the method from back then was weird? Well, then again, this wouldn't be the first time memories didn't carry over properly. Maybe I should have counted myself lucky for remembering it all. Tons of things to think about. But the beast in the village can't solve you just yet. If I key 8, I could probably... Yeah, that definitely can't solve that at the moment. About the dream of developing Fujiyoshi as well as Loopy the sheep had told me about. But, this wasn't the time to worry about that. Went back to Nosato Mansion. Doorbell. Excuse me. Doorbell. Excuse me. Doorbell, 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 doorbell. The fuck? In the jungle of the decadent void, the Buddhist corpse shouts out. Who's singing the Buddha's ass rock while hammering my doorbell? Me! You? Have you gone mad? What's wrong with you? You were a normal youth until just a moment ago. Perfectly sane. And you know the song? What about it? Simply remembered hearing it at a store. Oh, so you don't know the Hinja Slaver? Well, I do. I knew it. Personally, I like Moraemon. What a minor Hinja. Black Doge says the way to go starting with part 3. Oh, I really love the part where 5 black Dogegas gather and become the black Dogezarian. I know, right? You're an otaku, huh? So are you. Wait, this isn't the time to bond over minor Flash movies. You don't have any other business with me, do you? I'm busy here. Hey, something to tell you. Believe you're someone who would understand. Huh? What is it? I'll say something absurd now. You might even doubt my sanity. Well, I'm not going to say that you can't differentiate reality and fiction. In fact, you could probably do it better than the average person. I, however, do believe you have the decent ability to suspend your disbelief. What are you getting at? Do you know what movie where someone is repeating the day before the school culture festival over and over again? Well, that one's a classic. Sure, I know it. What about it? Something similar has happened to me right now. Wait. Mist will rise from Serenade in just a few hours. The Feast of the Only Purge will begin and many will die. Why do you know that term? You will die, too. Answer my question. Stop saying ridiculous things. I understand if you don't believe me. I repeated these days a few dozen times now. A few dozen? At this point, I guess technically, if I were to label which time this was chosen, it was before you talked to Chiemi. And they looped hundreds of times, with him getting killed about half that. By her. I repeated those days a few dozen times now. With every death, I loop back to square one. That's why I know a lot about Yatsumizu, including things that no newcomer should know about. You are a doctor of medicine, graduated from XX University. Chikamochi is your nephew, and you have feelings for Rikako. However, I'm sure that's not enough. I could have easily looked that up myself. And what's more, I didn't come here to save you. It's likely that you'll die this time too. But I would like to ask you some things, so I can prevent the feast from happening in another timeline. Are you serious? Yes. Why come to me? Through the many feasts I've been in, I've come to understand what kind of person you are. Your nature, basically. And believe that you are a person who can understand things if they're explained properly. Come in. There. Finally, we get an actual conversation with this guy. Still hate him, but, you know. He let me into the well-furnished reception room. The inside was as fancy as the outside. The village heads had to be a really wealthy bunch. Is it that curious? He returned from the kitchen carrying a set of black tea. Sorry for staring. I think it's outdated, too. Don't worry. Have some tea. Oh, no need to fuss over me. I'm a poor upbringing, so do tell me if I'm not drinking right or something. I don't mind if you drink how you want. Thank you. Now, was this room prepared by the head of the family from 3 generations ago? Your great-grandfather? Where'd you hear about him? Even you are, how do I put it, a looper. I do not believe Nosato would tell you about the stain on the family name. Did another village head tell you about it? I don't know what he'd want, but he must be some sort of swindler. It was you. What? I heard it from you. When your and Chikamochi's relationship became worse, you told him this. You're as much of a madman as your great-great-grandfather. He closed his eyes and groaned, then laid back on his sofa. I invited you inside out of mere curiosity. But if you know that much, I might even believe you. I mean, who else is he going to believe told him? I need you to, though. I don't have anything I would call evidence. Instead, I will tell you of the loops I experienced. Probably make it seem more absurd, but I still want you to believe it. Enough of the build-up, get to it. We only got a few hours after all. I drank the fragrant tea and spoke. About the time Yasu won as a wolf. About the time Chiemi tried to kill everyone and the time she failed. Yeah, Psycho Chiemi is crazy. And how even at the end of that time, Kyono had for some reason killed Rikako, and then I killed him. I honestly think that something happened to her, she hung herself, he went crazy, tried to brutalize her. And, dude, just look at the horrified look and how pale my guy is. But you never know. I have no idea who Sheep might be at this point in time. Well, I had told him about the time I became a wolf and sacrificed my companions to win. Well, though I kept quiet about the sheep and the giant monster for now. Although, I didn't sacrifice her, she sacrificed herself. It's hard to think that he was the main culprit behind the loop, but there was no guarantee that it wouldn't leak out somehow. Thus, I only told him that I was hanged because Mamiya found the flashlight. I'd also mentioned that Kyono died too, and that I had heard of the thing that was great-grandfather then. About an hour of talk, he stood up to get more tea. Poured it in, I gladly drank it. Unlike before, it was herb tea. Tired from talking, I let the pleasant scent of the tea wash away at my fatigue and eyed him. He was hanging his head, looking down at the tea leaves floating as his tea. Took the cup in hand, drank some of it, and looked at me. You're right, this does sound absurd. However, it does seem like something that can happen in this absurd place. Although, you know, the sheep does kind of sound like him. So, I wouldn't be surprised either. But at the moment, I don't know. Simply say that I'm more interested in this than ever, but the more I listen, the more I wonder. What do you want of me? If you've seen so many feet, surely you know by now. I'm not the man who can do much in a dire situation. I'll start with something seemingly unrelated, but I don't quite understand that opinion of yours. At first I thought you were just an arrogant and haughty person. Then I thought you were just a village head antagonistic to Yasumizu. I would only say that you are just a bit uncomfortable with your hometown, and that you actually have a good discretion and talents. You do absurd things sometimes, but I do believe you look at your decisions from a third-person perspective. That makes me feel like you're hiding your true abilities. I honestly am nearly completely sure that the head families are involved in the feast. That's why I believe you might know something, but are hiding it. That's why I want you to tell me what you know about Yasumizu and Fujiyoshi's secrets. Though, as I mentioned before, there may be more delicate matters here, like the Uematsu family. Even so, I want to hear everything. Bad at talking and leading, simply because I'm that kind of person. Yeah, we already know that. As you know, I'm the current head of the family, is my older brother. He is a great man of character with immense intelligence and charisma. I've been in his shadow ever since I was young. Whenever I said or did whatever I wanted, he would spin in a way that was good for me. Because everything went so well with him, I began to believe I was blessed with great talent. Realized how mediocre I really was at the time. I turned 20. Realized I was bad at reasoning and generally a nuisance. That's why I left this village. But I couldn't find a place for myself outside either. The only place where I felt comfortable was the Sci-Fi Research Society. It was basically a hangout for gaudy people like myself. Even so, most of them were smart, and even the president, despite his many repeated years, had excellent leadership skills. I became the vice president whenever I said anything too apprehensive, speculative, or scathing. He would turn it around for me. I knew full well I can't lead. I imagined that the me you knew merely tried to be useful to Sir Makishima, Yasunaga, or Mura. Probably couldn't abandon my pride, even in that situation. A village head like me has to take charge and whatnot. It's so unreasonable. Truly am a problematic person. Please don't be so hard on yourself. See pretty clearly you're a level-headed person. It's all because you said things so absurd that I felt like opening up to you. Remember how I was before I let you inside? A haughty, aggressive, boring man. Well, even if you're a liar and everything you said was made up, I consider this worth it for the moment of introspection. I mean, that would be one hell of a bullseye to get for making shit up. At least as long as you don't tell me to pay for your tuition or something. My heart ached a bit. I won't say that, of course. But I was exposed to the current him to danger. Now, back on topic, about what you wanted to hear. Fortunately, the family isn't that interested in me. You mean that? Yes, though I do know the basics of what a village head should know. I know absolutely nothing about what they do behind the scenes. Though, do you know about the older hostilities between Yasumizu and Kami Fujiyoshi? No, please tell me. Fortunately, barely anyone knew about the village of the feast, or rather, they all converged upon a certain old story. With a minor bit of knowledge, Kiyono knew about a village head, and he said that Yasumizu had once rebelled against Kami Fujiyoshi. They didn't know what prompted it, but apparently it had something to do with the water used for growing crops. Anyway, the people of Yasumizu invaded Kami Fujiyoshi at night and stole, beat, and killed people. They were all covered in Saranega's mud to keep from being identified. Kami Fujiyoshi inhabitants greatly feared their appearance. Thus, after the rebellion, they decided to make things even worse for Yasumizu, and the inhabitants effectively strangled themselves, apparently. Jesus. I believe the thing about Saranega's mud is tied to Fujiyoshi's unique perspective on life and death, particularly Yomi. So did the mud in the rebellion make Count Fujiyoshi believe that the people of Yasumizu were Yomibito? It's not out of the question, but not certain either. Yasumizu and Count Fujiyoshi had already been segregated. And it wasn't unlikely that there could be a rebellion. It was likely that the idea to cover themselves in mud was linked to the legend that Saranega was Yomi and intended to frighten people. See, so how should we look at this event? For one, it was reason for the Shinai Festival, the mountain festival that is still held today. They have a tradition to hold a parade of wolves that symbolizes subduement and bringing down the people of Yasumizu. Have you seen the cloth mask they wear while farming? Yes, so that people of Yasumizu don't look in the eyes of the Yomibito. It's the other way around, so the people of Kami Fujiyoshi wouldn't have to look in the eyes of the people of Yasumizu, who may or may not be Yomibito. Opposite way around. These old, unreasonable superstitions are still alive because they crossed the line once. That's what the village heads believe. Saying it out loud, I realize how truly awful it is. Why is such a festival and tradition still alive to this day? That festival may actually be important for Yasumizu. Do you know why? I don't. The Wolf Parade passes all the Okuba in Yasumizu, splashes water on the residents, and meets the village representative in the hall. Tai-san, huh? The wolves would offer some things to the representative, and after thanking them for the festival's success, give them a lot of money and other goods. So they isolate Yasumizu economically, and only pamper the place during these festivals. Exactly. You might say that this is just another way Count Fujiyoshi controls Yasumizu. The money and goods are split among the inhabitants, and here it really helps them get by. This is only done out of fear that Yasumizu could rebel again. Just so you know, the Nosato don't approve of this. Only the Meguruma are fixated on it, and they're the top of Fujiyoshi. Which is Chie's banished name, as she was a Meguruma. Though the Higuchi are on it too, they believe trampling all over Yasumizu is the logical thing to do. What an incomprehensible bunch. So as far as you know, the Nosato don't approve of this tyranny. Yes, I can't deny that as far as I know. Sorry, need to make something clear. It confuses me. Said that the rebellion wasn't the result of superstition, but that means that it's not certain the mountain festival is caused by the rebellion either. Also, the festival and the feast are closely linked. You'd even see it in the methods and roles. Don't know why I'm yawning like crazy today. Oh, you mentioned that Divine Sake was drunk at the feast as well. Are you sure it's not a coincidence? They donate paper, writing tools, and rope, but we mean that at least the bigger room will know about what happens at the feast. Hell, at this point, I'm willing to say with absolute certainty. The Feast of the Yomi Purge is a severe crime committed by the head families to intimidate and control Yasumizu. I have an argument. You said the Feast involves monsters, doors that unlock themselves to supernatural punishments. It's a paranormal event. You are certain that the head families are responsible. I would like a scientific explanation for all the strange events. It's easy. What? Before I get to that, I would like to ask something. Can you show me the documents and writings collected in this mansion? I ended up being disappointed once. That's outside a storage building. There were archives there. Been a lot of documents left by Kyono's great-grandfather, but they were sorted after he died. Of course, that would have been. Thus, there was barely anything left, and the record storage was more just general storage. Even so, since I'd taken a look now, I was here. It really was just a place stuffed with various things. Guess there's no lie that this whole mansion really is just a place to stash things. Yes, but we do have people living here sometimes. Like who? Previous two heads of the family lived here after they retired. So your father too? Yeah, he quickly grew senile and died of poisoning. Is that true? When did that happen? 8 years ago. Oh, good lord. It's when the previous feast happened. What? Yes, it happened after the mist. There was a feast back then. There was a feast back then? Yes, the official report that people died on the landslide at your construction site must have been a cover for that. Wait, what? What, wait, are you saying that my father knew something and died because of it? It's possible, and there's the fact that this mansion was used as a retirement home of the previous Nosato. I think we might find something here. The Nosato really are the control structure of Fujiyoshi. That's even more likely. Let's look. If there's still something here, it must be hidden. But the mansion's too large, we don't even know what we'll be looking for. Sure, it must be something big. It has to be large enough for the previous heads to hide, write, and research. A secret room. I have a blueprint of the place. Found it, opened it, and went around the mansion. Nothing strange here. There's no empty space. I didn't see any discrepancies with the actual building. How long is this actually taking? Because the mists are coming in. We're coming in a few hours. Same one for the storage building. Isn't this a waste of time? No, the blueprint isn't fake in any way. There must be something in a place that doesn't cover. What do you mean? Let's check the basement of the storage building. See, if there's a secret room in the basement, it wouldn't affect the blueprint because it'd be outside the boundaries. Blueprint doesn't have to show false information, it just has to avoid showing it. That'll make the search even more difficult. I was right that sifting through the mess here would take forever, but we can make it a lot easier to focus on the floor and the walls. Left my bag on the prefab so I had no flashlight. I asked Osato for something prepared, an aged oil lamp. All sorts of things laying around, huh? Probably a flashlight somewhere, but it suits this atmosphere, right? Knew exactly what he meant. Took us less than a half hour to find it. Of course, it wasn't something that looked like we were searching for it at first glance. But it did seem a bit unnatural. There was a palm-sized crow carved on a wooden surface below the border wall. Crow, which is a symbol for his family. I'm going to save right here, just in case anything happens. Alright, have a good night, Sabas. I might be finishing this game tonight, but I do plan on streaming again Saturday. Either Saturday or Sunday. One of those 2 days. My store's been running into a lot of problems, so we haven't been making a whole lot of money. If our store's back up tomorrow, I'll probably be working some overtime during the weekend. But other than that, yeah, I plan on coming back on Saturday. And I do plan on starting Shining Force 30 Scenario 2 around then, if I'm done with this game. I do believe I'm going to be done with this, but you never know. I mean, you might know, I just don't know yet. But have a good night. Palm-sized crow carved. Yep. It was a symbol of the Nosato. Is it a clue? Or some sort of mechanism. It's not just a carving, its parts are separate and movable. Buttons, so it's like a game. So he wasn't the only Nosato with strange hobbies, huh? I imagine I expect you to press them in order, but do you know any hints? The will of the crow. Offering those up to Fujiyoshi shall be as of the will of the crow. It had to be it. So Nosato could open easily, huh? Yes, we never repeat that teaching to anyone who has a family. If it was made by my great-grandfather, that must be a trap, too. Seriously? But it's no problem for you, is it? Okay. We'll see. We'll see what I get through. I was planning on checking out everything. But who knows what gets unlocked when. What was that again? Claw, feather? Oh no, I'm not sure. Do you remember it? Hey! Oh no. Oh, I could just loop back to all this. It's not gonna matter. Crap. How about claw, eye, and beak? Something like devour the claw, eye, and beak. Oh, that's right. Quickly pressed. Moment later. Part of the... Oh my god, did I get it right on the first try? Holy shit! It opened up a space through which an adult, probably not Hashimoto, could pass. He liked this kind of thing, I assume. How embarrassing, but I can't help feel excited myself. It must be in my blood. Don't worry, I feel you. He bantered nonchalantly despite the dire situation. As we headed inside, we had to pass through some hanging dried herbs. Oh, they gotta be absolutely rancid. What's this? St. John's wort? Aren't you knowledgeable? It's just some herbs to repel bugs, don't mind it. And it seems you're right. It's a study. It's tight in here, but the length is good. Let's see what we can find. Hope we have records made by the previous heads. Found a diary. Already? Let me look. I can't believe I got it on the first try. We started looking around. Like we expected, the thick diary had writings left by all the previous heads of the Nosato family. Began with his great-grandfather, and the others added more after their retirements. All of them had strange handwriting according to what Kiyono could make out. It was a highly detailed document that references to other texts here. You could really tell it belonged to a family of scholars. The index of the diary referenced the documents all over the room. And the diary itself was like a description of what went on behind the scenes of Fujiyoshi. Kiyono's great-grandfather was a genius who gathered immense wealth, but also a madman who threw it all away. His writings were especially difficult to read, analyze, and understand. However, the feeling behind it couldn't be more obvious. It was anguish. Anguish at the fact that he found a rational solution began to doubt the superstitions. The preamble went like this. Why do we submit to the great Lord Shinai? Outsiders, when we see our belief as pure madness. Even so, we take the passion we direct to our parents and children instead dedicated to our faith. That alone would not mean much, but when you see the shadow of great Lord Shinai over our daily lives, we become fearful and absolutely loyal to him, like well-trained dogs. This slavery of the mind will still shackle us when the era of enlightenment reaches our home. That is why I've decided to take up the will of the crow, so I neglected and began my research. I so neglected. I hope that it bears fruit. Mankind, not God, benefits from it, breaking free of the centuries of ignorance. It's written by Kiyono's great-grandfather, shortly after his roll his head was passed down while he was still in his healthy 40s. Upon reading this, Kiyono looked conflicted. The great-grandfather thought to be a man who was actually both reasonable and intelligent. I also had something to think about. He challenged God. The absurd endeavor might have been the reason why he'd gone mad. The diary had 3 sections. First one, the great-grandfather tried to pinpoint the origin of Fujiyoshi. Wanted to find the invisible chains binding him by looking at where they started and where they were going. However, that was difficult. Trying to find documents of Fujiyoshi would have attracted the attention of the other families, particularly the Biguruma, who would then obstruct his work. So Chiemi's family are kind of the evil people, and they are the tower, the snake. Our legends say that we were protected by Shinai-sama. By looking for proof claiming otherwise, we would be betraying his compassion, and that was the height of disrespect. It was also a time when not everyone went to school and literacy levels were really low, thus most of the records were held by the head families. However, there was no record of one of them trying to check another family's records. That would be obviously he met with opposition. Thus he looked at the historical documents from outside Fujiyoshi. With the settlement being such a strange place, he figured that there would be many records about it made by outsiders. He was completely right. There were lots of old writings in the nearby villages and towns. Since it was a wartime and the economy was dire, the paper was about to be wasted on fixing sliding. He used his own funds to acquire these precious documents. They were now organized and placed somewhere in the room, but anyway. He was able to locate Fujiyoshi's roots. It happened 600 years ago during the Muromachi period, a bit before the Sengoku. According to the documents, the place now known as Kabu Fujiyoshi began as a hunter settlement. This place was a hunting ground for centuries. Gaming had only spread among the common people during the Meiji period, but the country folk had been eating it for long before that. First, it was just a settlement of cabins for the hunters from nearby villages to rest or shelter, and a place to skin and prepare meat. Once the people realized how rich the area was in game, they began colonizing the place. As a result, a part of Kabu Fujiyoshi was born, and the people began living here as either farmers or hunters. The settlement had no name yet. However, these extremely old documents referred to as Okami Village or something similar. Not Okami as in Okami-sama, though, but Okami as in wolves, the canine beast. Apparently this place really had wolves before. Not mountain dogs or badgers, but actual wolves. That was no secret, though. The Shinai Shrine run by Meguruma had actual wolf bones in it. However, according to the document, during the settlement's development, the place was often attacked by wolves that caused major damage. They probably tried many things to deal with it, but the documents wrote down one very simple method. People of the Wolf Village prepared a human sacrifice and co-signed them to flame. Human sacrifice. It was a practice that existed in Japan for a long time. During construction or whatnot, people would be killed and buried as offerings to prevent misfortune. Oh. I heard human sacrifice is made to prevent bridges being taken away by floods or people buried during castle fortification. It was a pretty big deal. So it wasn't weird to do it to prevent a beast-related problem. It did seem like a plausible story, so I wasn't surprised. Neither of us were specialists, but from what I knew, people tried to benefit from sacrifice by later on worshipping them as gods. I had heard that the pillar kanji used to count gods was based on the term for human sacrifice. And that's a term that we would have seen back in Wild Arms 2, with Tim being the pillar in that game. And he was going to be used as a sacrifice to save the world, if possible. Anyway, following the sacrifice, the beast attack subsided and the settlement continued to grow. At this point, the upper settlement, once known as Okami Village, now Kamifujiyoshi, was surrounded by cabins and other settlements. Through irrigation, these settlements gathered water from the Wolf Village. One of these settlements was a dangerous place that was often covered in mist that led people to their deaths, and for some reason the locals found it really important. Kiyono, his great-grandfather, and myself figured that it had to be Yasumizu. And if they took water from Kamifujiyoshi, it wasn't hard to imagine that the hierarchical relationship between the settlements had already existed then. Agricultural societies, settlements that controlled the supply of water were extremely influential. After all, if they stopped the flow, the settlements below would dry out. It was even related to Yasumizu rebellion that Kiyono told me about. Couldn't ignore this point. Though there's no mention of Yasumizu or the local superstitions yet. All that the document said was that the Wolf Village was steadily progressing as a settlement. However, there was a mention of a fearsome beast yokai, or god that ate people. Though it was only mentioned in the oldest documents, so never heard from again. A god. A powerless god. That's not enough. The legends don't say anything about. Wait. The Badger. Do you hate that name? Not at all. It's not wrong in the least. It's a fitting name for someone wearing the marks of Great Lord Shinai and acting as leader of these mutts. So why not try joining me? My land may be small, but I will make sure you are not bored. It had to be God. She said she was defeated by Great Lord Shinai, but never mentioned when it happened. To the left side of the kanji for God, there's a radical for show, and it's even more obvious in its old form. This means that the result is Okami, Great God. I was close to the truth. But for now, back to the history. Fujiyoshi had started out as your typical hunting farming settlement. Things changed after about a century when life in the settlement had stabilized. By this point, the records left by the outsiders started noting that there was a strange village in the mountains. The sources had started to become many and varied too. I was curious about how the great-grandfather got documents from Kyoto and Tohoku. But anyway, these reports were records written by travelers who stopped here. Many of them were interested in local customs. One was their hate for mountain fires. It was so bad that the outsiders weren't allowed to make any flames. They themselves had a special watering hole where they did it. One was their worship of a humanoid wolf statue. They asked it for a good fortune in the hunt and peaceful in the life of the mountains. One was a special misty place where travelers were summoned and welcomed by sensual women. Some rumors mentioned seemed hardly believable, but some of them were still alive, and I was surprised to know how old they were. What bothered me was the fact that there were many records of the invitations to the misty place, but nothing about getting killed there. In fact, most of them mentioned eating good meat and veggies and drinking good sake while having fun with beautiful girls. It was safe to assume that the Feast of the Oni Purge hadn't existed back then. It was close to the traditional treatment of guests as described by Rikako. By the way, you seem pretty hung up on guests. Is there some sort of local culture related to that? Yes, I hear that Fujiyoshi was once full of visitors, who came to the Shinai Shrine to pray for good hunting. Hunters from the outside were considered honored guests and treated kindly around here. However, there's one thing she seemed to be wrong about. The strange village in the records was a completely different place than the one built around Shania's shrine she spoke of. In fact, there wasn't a single mention of Shania at this point. The general area was marked as Kachihara. Would things change if we continued further? Anyway, we kept reading. Everything we're told is a lie, man. Such records continued for 2 or 3 decades, but there was a period that wasn't recorded at all. Apparently, the travelers who made their way to the area started being chased out, and that was it. The settlement suddenly became isolated. Without any documents from the village itself, it was hard to know exactly what happened during this time. But according to the Osato documents, this time period was how far they could trace their lineage back. After that, the settlement showed up in records another century later. So something between that period. Everything changed. It was middle of the Edo period, peaceful times. The amount of records appeared to have exploded. Along with the name Shinai. There's a hidden mountain where people worship a wolf-faced god and prosper because of it. It's said that the hunters who do not pay their respects to him get lost or injured in the mountains. It is a spiritual place that a mountain ascetic should visit at least once. Their prayers seem to heal all. There are oracles who can predict the future with great accuracy. Non-believers who step on the mountain are in for a terrible fate. The name of the god they worship is Shinai. The village is called Fujiyoshi. So that's it. Lurched forward and shouted with excitement. True, I did hear this village was called Fujiyoshi. What's so important about that? Same trick with the name Shinai-san. When you take apart the kanji for Shinai into that and that, you can rearrange them into Okami, great god, which is also phonetically identified to wolf. You're right. Hey, wait, you mean that this is the same? Look at the name Fujiyoshi. Oh, Fushiyoshi. First kanji contains a radical for dog. Dog covers the animal radical that's used for the left of the kanji. Keep that in mind. You line up with the yoshi for Fushiyoshi to get Fushiyoshi. If you broke apart the first kanji, you get person, dog, and good. Then by combining the latter 2 kanji, one and putting the whole thing together again, you got Hito Okami, or werewolf. 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 Hito Okami. Does that refer to the Okami-sama, or to Great Lord Shinai? The two of them are essentially the same. One takes the form of peaceful god, Great Lord Shinai, while the other takes the form of the resentful Okami-sama. Finally get the term for werewolf. Jesus Christ. They both take the shape of the 3 werewolves, but do different things. I really can't blame the people for seeing them as the same. Let's not forget that we have documents saying that there was a culture here that worshipped werewolves at least a century ago. They probably had some beast attacks, started holding human sacrifice, and built a permanent faith around werewolves. And then as time passed, evolved into Shinai-sama. Okami-sama is a divinity born during one of those stages. And to the people of that era, they were the same thing. The villagers of Fushiyoshi were fully aware of their religious peculiarities and even hid their own village's name. Why did they hide in the first place? I'm sure we'll find more hints up ahead. You're right, let's move on. The great-grandfather seemed to have noticed these hidden words too. The reports that followed generally described Fushiyoshi as it was. Though their strange practices were not considered rituals, it seemed to prosper as a cult village. It was a mountain village far from the rest of the civilization, yet it prospered through the money left behind by guests who made the trip regardless. There are now 2 types of guests here. The ones who visit the place to hunt, and the ones who came for religious reasons. The writings from the latter dates include lots of those left by monks who came here to study the culture. All of them were surprised by the strange faith and legends of Fushiyoshi and praised the strength of their belief. Some wrote about the faith in detail. Many of them clearly named the 4 head families and the legend about the 5 guardians. The hunters, however, didn't leave many writings. Or rather, it wasn't even their writings. Besides a couple reports by local lords of someone hunting down large beasts on Mount Shinai, there are also those who simply mentioned men who went hunting in Fushiyoshi and never returned. One of them clearly stated, "Do not hunt in Fushiyoshi in the summer. The people of Fushiyoshi speak of the curse of Yasumizu." See, Fushiyoshi has changed a lot over the century. Yes, it's fair to assume that all the local names and stories were created during this time. Yasumizu seems to be leaving a different impression too. The hunters who visit the place don't come back. That must mean that Feast of the Yomi Purge had begun. The history continued. Interesting. After a while, of prosperity due to the Shinai cult, Fushiyoshi began to deteriorate and become Meiji. The new government centralized power. Rural areas began to be developed, and the religious reforms established Shinto as the state religion. The anti-Buddhist movement of that era planned a complete separation of Shinto and Buddhism, destroying many Buddhist temples, customs, and cultural assets, dealing another blow to the village and its faith. This can easily be found in Osato records, but it was admitted here that Uematsu were particularly damaging for them. Well, there's no denying that the Uematsu culture seemed Buddhist in nature, and the prostitution part must have made them targets of harsh prejudice. The Shinai faith, which had many strange rituals, had to either cease and discard them or turn them into something more culturally acceptable. However, they did keep a few of them. Before moving on to the next chapter, we put together the region names of Fushiyoshi, which the great-grandfather rediscovered from the archives. According to him, Fushiyoshi had several districts, each one under the jurisdiction of the village heads. Miguruma had Fushiki, where the Shinai shrine was built. The Gachi had Hoshizuki, where people gathered. Nosato had Tomoguchi, the medical plant field right beside Kagagawa. And lastly, Uematsu were given Hachao, the lodging area. According to the Kiyono, these regions remain common Fujiyoshi to this day. In fact, the names of these regions had existed in the era when the name Fushiyoshi began to spread to the outside, as well as the designation Common Fujiyoshi. On the other hand, places aside from Common Fujiyoshi had already been clearly identified and named, such as Yasumizu. Not Yasumizu spelled with the kanji for rest and water, but rather rest and lord. See, my great-grandfather reached the same conclusion as us then. Swap kanji for Fushiki around and combine them into one, you get comb for hair. With Hoshizuki, you get the same trick to combine them to get liver, huh? Kagekawa was originally written as that, and first kanji on top of the latter, and you get bone. Tomoguchi is a no-brainer. Put Gucci on top of Tome, you get foot. And with Hacho, you place the second kanji between the first and you get claw. So the region names for Common Fujiyoshi were divided up and based on body parts. And then we get the real spelling Yasumizu. Break the first kanji down, you're left with person, tree, and lord. Combine the latter two in one kanji and put the full word together and you get human sacrifice. His great-grandfather seemed to have no clue about the purpose of the names. However, he did guess that the oldest one was either Fushiyoshi or Yasumizu, while the other names were new. He concluded that the link between those names, the words werewolf and human sacrifice, were related. There was another thing here. He guessed that Common Fushiyoshi was named after body parts to represent a single human as a way of responding to or opposing Yasumizu. Another guess was that by burying the sentiment, the name, instead of burying the people in the ground, they avoided killing their own. Honestly, it seemed to me like we didn't have enough to understand the true intention behind this. Though the fact that they hid the words human sacrifice in Yasumizu was pretty shady. You could assume that was named that because of a human sacrifice meant to help their including Common Fushiyoshi prosper. Or perhaps it was related to the human sacrifice from the origin of the village. Regardless, there was definitely ulterior motives behind the names. As one who knew Yasumizu's future, I was certain of that. Fushiyoshi and Yasumizu had become Fujiyoshi and Yasumizu. During the Meiji period and became part of a single area. The great-grandfather concluded that the name was based on local convention that was meant to hide the village's past. He had nowhere to continue from here, and his writing of the diary ended. Interesting. Next section was started out by Kiyono's great-grandfather, but after his writing grew worse and worse, finally stopped. His son took over. According to Kiyono's great-grandfather, he had gotten mental illness, began acting eccentric. He'd seen it with his own eyes. Final, reasonable bits of writing left behind by him cursed his deteriorating mind and hoped that his descendants would take over his research. His wish was fulfilled when Kiyono's grandfather found this room and took over. Good lord. This section was primarily made to give detailed descriptions to the outdated rites and customs of Fushiyoshi. Naturally, the lack of historical accounts was a hindrance. However, the documents owned by the Nosato family and the knowledge he gained as a head made it possible to do. He was also married to someone with ties to the Miguruma, so he also gained access to some Miguruma records. That is important. Having gathered info from some various sources, he reached some reliable conclusions, though his efforts to gather information made him the target of the other head families. His mind also seemed to deteriorate during the twilight years. The final bits of writing in the diary seemed to scream his fear of death. He died on May 1st, 15 years ago. The text here made it evident that he died in the Feast of the Yomi Purge. As the hand of the supernatural looms over us and takes our lives, I realize I am losing control of my mind. Now I have seen the might of the Gatos to venerate. What duty do I have to continue the previous head's research into our homeland of Fushioshi? I will probably be hanged tomorrow, and in all honesty, it seems like a favorable outcome at this point. What if the irresistible urge to sleep faded and I opened my eyes to see the wolf-faced god? I would be unable to bear the fear. The wolf's bane I shall use to end my life lies in my hand. That was it. Kiyono's voice was shaking. From what he said, his grandfather was an intelligent gentleman that he knew personally and respected immensely. Anyway, text here can be summed up as thus. Fushioshi had several strange rites and customs. When combined with one unique to specific head families, the number grew exponentially. It revealed all the details about these things and even had the info we really didn't care about right now. The context about the Uematsu were particularly harsh, even though it was noted that not everything was here. Info about the Miguruma, however, was extremely limited. However, it was said that horrible screams could be heard from their storehouse. That day, I playfully opened the iron door to the basement of the third lookout. I was told never to go there, and the door had that symbol on it. And it was a morbidly interesting read, but there was only one thing that mattered to us. It was the custom of lynching in Yasumizu. It was basically describing the Feast of the Yomi Purge. The Okami would return for Yomi to get revenge for being killed. The story was the same. Two notable points here. One was that it apparently began about 500 years ago after the village closed itself off from the world. And the other was that Kama Fushioshi was mostly uninvolved in the feast of that era. Kiyono's grandfather examined the feast's origin from various angles. He investigated the stones of the Hanging Pines graveyard and looked at the records of Kama Fushiyoshi's mansion and concluded that Kama Fushioshi were marking the graves. And according to the Mason records, the Okubo were placed in Yasumizu at this time too. 500 years of history was enough to make a historic landmark, but they were no megaliths from millennia BCE. They were simply put there to help turn the village into a great Lord Shinai's worshipping holy ground. The words left behind by the elders of Kama Fujiyoshi and Yasumizu gave us even more info. There was a legend that at a time when samurai still existed, Yomabito poured out Yasumizu and attacked Kama Fushioshi. That coincidence with the rebellion Kiyono had mentioned, the reason why the head families oppressed Yasumizu. Looking at both the documents and word of mouth, the rebellion had happened 5 centuries ago, shortly before the village became isolated. And that's what we saw. Yasumizu and Yomabito were said to be scary creatures completely covered in blood water. You find the word blood water by playing with the kanji of the name Serenega. Bloodwater Rapids. The stream was considered corrupt even half a millennium ago. Anyway, though the legend warped by superstition, there was no denying that Kama Fujiyoshi was attacked by people covered in Serenega mud. Grandfather concluded without a doubt that this incident was what made Kama Fushiyoshi's people so afraid of Yasumizu. This rebellion was the very cause of the decades of isolation, the creation of the Shinai faith, and the start of the Feast of the Yomi Purge. As for what that meant, it was all planned for the purpose of holding the already discriminated Yasumizu down and preventing further rebellion. The grandfather thought that Yasumizu was purposely created to be discriminated against. It was a bad and dangerous place to live in. The reason why it wasn't abandoned wasn't mentioned here, but anyway, people continued calling it home. In governing, intentionally creating a lower class, treating them poorly, satisfied the upper class, and thus made their governance easier. Something you saw all over the world. Even in Japan, there was complicated historical discrimination that left its mark even in the current era. Thus, the presence of a settlement meant to be looked down upon was good for the leaders of that era. However, they didn't want any more rebellions. So how could they stop it? One way was to make them fight amongst themselves. Another was to make them so superstitious they wouldn't even think of rebelling. Basically, they had to make them believe the lie that there were wolves among them who were killing people, causing them to kill each other. By doing that, they would sap any strength Yasumizu needed to rebel. They also prepared a background story to make them believe that the anomaly was actually real. The grandfather guessed that this was the true purpose of the 5-century-old religion. His sources for that were the documents gathered by his predecessor, which claimed that people from the local temples and shrines were called into the village. He assumed that the incomplete or intentionally destroyed records were those regarding the scholars they summoned to help create the religion. That seemed absurd at first, but after thinking about it, it was entirely reasonable. The summit they looked down upon had bared their fangs at them, so what'd they do? Call the smart people for help. That was natural. So, the scholars teamed up, created a religion, and made the settlement fight itself. God. If they given the head family roles their legends to ensure proper control, man, it sounded messed up, but it didn't seem possible. Of course, it's the heads that do all this. It's the other way around. It's so that the people of Kamifujiyoshi wouldn't have to look in the eyes of the people of Yasumizu, who may or may not be Obito. They wanted to avoid eye contact not only because they thought they were corrupted, but also because they were afraid. Kamifujiyoshi was afraid of Yasumizu. It was a possibility I wouldn't have considered before, but also seemed likely. It'd be pretty scary if the people they looked down upon finally let their grudge take over and become fearful marauders, ready to enact their revenge. Because they were aware of how badly they treated the settlement, the guilt grew even larger. They started controlling and discriminating against them even further. When we looked at it that way, they made a whole religion just to protect themselves. Boy, was that insane. Now with the feast's origin revealed, what was that about the head families not being involved in it so much? Apparently the first feasts were a lot simpler than the current one. There was the purification, sheltering, dreaming, and then the limit of one per day, but there was no actual punishment for breaking these laws. Probably set it up to prevent indiscriminate massacres. Also, there was no wolf section, and there were no guardians. The heads, or Fushiyoshi's leaders at that time, only circulated the Yasumizu legend that the wolves came back. By spreading the local legend along with a lie, they motivated the people to kill each other whenever the mist appeared. It was successful when people started killing suspected wolves every time the mist showed up. In response to that, those who spread the suspicions were brutalized at night. This weakened Yasumizu, left the place a breeding ground for future problems, and too weak to rebel. That doesn't make sense. Why would they kill each other just because of that? How can there be murders without any real threat? The past isn't the present. There were times when superstition could make people murder one another. Your grandfather used the word lynch right from the start, and I think that's important. I think the Feast of the Yomi Purge is actually useful to the people of Yasumizu too. What do you mean? Let's keep reading. Jesus. Sure enough, the grandfather seemed to believe that the people of Yasumizu, the feast made the killings due to a just cause. According to this, the feast wasn't considered a paranormal event, not even by the Yasumizu people themselves. It was just a justification for lynching. The hand of the law didn't reach this backwards village, and Yasumizu was even more isolated. A settlement for the ostracized. Of course, there had to be conflicts and wrongings, and the social system to solve them was limited. Thus, there was a demand for solutions beyond the law, and the feast fit the bill perfectly. When mist came, they could easily get rid of people they didn't like. However, that came the risk of being targeted by their friends and family. This continuous cycle of lynchings and revenge eventually destroys the minority and leaves the majority wounded. The feast ends, the law returns to Yasumizu. Good lord. A lot going on right now. Seemed the ostracism they'd done in ancient Greece. Anyone who was against the law of the village had their names written on a pottery and voted to be exiled. A backwards but effective way to keep order. Though, while the punishment there was exile, the feast came with a death penalty. Clearly unjust, but they found it better than nothing. By having the occasional unlawful disputes, they actually prevented the settlement as a whole from crumbling. Those who participated in the lynchings had their guilt lessened by considering legends and myths. Superstition had a real-world effect. By telling people they'd be hanged if they were bad, the renegades among them would be silenced. So yeah, the Feast of the Yomi Purge had its perks for both Kamifujiyoshi and Yasumizu. I almost called it Kamifujiyoshi. The fact that that changes is catching me a few times. Also, apparently, it was a long-running tradition for Kamifujiyoshi to do certain things immediately before the mists come. Let me save this right now. Alright. They summoned the children of Yasumizu to Kamifujiyoshi and called the women to help them with food. There was no end to these records. Much like the Mountain Festival, the carrot for the stick they constantly provided the settlement. But it was also a form of population control. They didn't want Yasumizu to be completely depopulated, so they protected the children. This tradition was alive to this day. Even 8 years ago, Tai, Kaori, and the children had been saved from the feast when they were called. So while it had its roots in superstition, the Feast of the Yomi Purge became a kind of social tool. See, controlled lynching, or perhaps capital punishment by popular vote. It's only useful to us Count Fujiyoshi people. It doesn't spread outside Yasumizu. Muro and the youths are right. The village heads are the bad guys here. Not sure about that. The leaders from that era might have intended this to be a kindness meant to ensure stability. Problem is that it continues to this day. Yes, this is something that shouldn't be happening in Yasumizu today. Is that what it says? It says that there were 3 feasts during and after the war. Feasts meant to manage society had ended with the one that began at the start of World War II. When Kyono's grandfather wrote this, he called it the previous feast. The one who survived it said that an actual wolf had appeared. Also, rules like sheltering, which had been ignored until now, came with a supernatural punishment. Legend had gone from mere story to reality. Grandfather himself had witnessed some paranormal things too. There was a pile of dog corpses that seemed to have appeared out of nowhere, and that's what happened in our Darkness route. The thorough, violent deaths given to the rule breakers. The wolves who could come in through locked doors brutalized the ones inside. Finally, the unity between the wolves, hell-bent on killing the humans, even if it meant their own death. That was the feast I knew. The next text was written by the previous head, Kyono's father, and he observed the 3rd feast of the recent times. It was the one that had happened 8 years ago, and its survivors mentioned impossible paranormal events that actually happened. It was the same, the exact same. The feast had been supernatural 3 times in a row. And this was the 4th one. That meant that something had drastically changed with the feast that happened during the war. The reason for that wasn't given here. Are you okay? Must be shocking. Should we take a break? No, I'm fine. Let's keep reading. Next is the text left by my father. Good lord, there's so much to read. Like Kyono said, the final section of the diary was written by the previous head of the Nosato family. He had inherited the will of his predecessor to try solving this mystery. Though, unlike them, he seemed to prioritize documents that had been released to the public. For one, there were cutouts of articles. He'd taken various clippings from newspapers and magazines to create an extremely large scrapbook. There were bits from local newspapers, national ones, and both general and specialized magazines of varied renown. Basically, he gathered all the info regarding Fujiyoshi, no matter how minor. Of course, we didn't have the time to look through all of them, so relied on the index of the diary. We found out the small village had a number of unexpectedly major events happen to it. They're also so big they actually made it into national newspapers. Some of the oldest and more notable ones were the articles about the serial murders here that happened here over 60 years ago. That was the feast. Number of articles titled 20 Deadly Break-ins at Fujiyoshi and Murders in 20 Houses in Mountain Village. I found that number to be significant. Though the number of places that had been attacked was 20, the number of casualties was 17. 8 more were injured. Regardless, it's definitely big enough to make a mark in Japanese history. Alright. This event was well covered for something that happened in the eve of World War II and ended with the culprit being sent to Tokyo and quickly executed. The incident was reported for 2 years from when it came light right up to the capital punishment. Jesus Christ. It can be summed up like this. December 27, 1940, Fujiyoshi Village, Kevin Fujiyoshi, Hochizuki, a man covered in mud invaded a private dwelling. Quickly used the kitchen knife he had to attack the the people inside, destroying property and escaped. One of the victims went on to die. Culprit went on to continue invading houses in Hochizuki, murder, and destroy property. After 30 minutes of this, he escaped to Fujimura by foot. The crime was so sudden that inhabitants of the local police couldn't do anything about it before it was over. Good lord. The incident came to light when the local police reported it to the Metropolitan Police. Since cars weren't widespread with the area, the doctors from the surrounding villages hurried over the horse-drawn carriages. That's how much of a big deal it was. Police had gathered a number of officers and established a perimeter to surround the culprit, but in the end they failed to arrest him. Of course they did. Man. The witness, bloodstains, and the other lost items made them conclude that the culprit had changed his clothes somewhere up the mountain and escaped by going down the river. They followed after him, but since it was the end of the year and it was hard to get around, it took them time to find proper footprints. January 3rd of the following year, the prefecture police noted that the perimeter was broken, but this wasn't reported. Investigations that followed bore no fruit, and the newspaper and magazines wrote a lot about escaped or hidden murder. But then, one afternoon at the end of January, a man showed up in a police station over in some place near Tokyo and said he was the murderer who escaped Fujiyoshi. There had been much speculation about where the culprit was from, but it turned out he was actually a local, which raised a few questions. One of them was, why couldn't the locals figure out who it was? The question was left unanswered. The man who turned himself in, Kihei Tochitani, 30 years old, became a subject of significant controversy. From this point on, major newspapers simply reported how the trial was going, while the magazines just had a ton of opinion pieces. Kiyono's father commented that the bigger room were actively keeping journalists from entering Yasumizu. Yeah, that's not suspicious at all. At the same time, they didn't resist the police, in fact, were highly cooperative. But in the end, Yasumizu wasn't really mentioned in the trial reports. It could have been the weak legislative system of the time, or the result of Biguruma's efforts. Under such circumstances, they held Kihei Tochitani's trial. He insisted on several things. That he was too drunk to remember the details. However, he was certain that he was the murderer. He lived in that area, was on bad terms with his neighbors to the point of holding a serious grudge. When he sobered up, he became scared and ran away, and since he knew he couldn't keep running forever, he just turned himself in. Too afraid to return to Fujiyoshi. Interesting. Some found his statement that he attacked 20 households in 30 minutes questionable, but it was a trial under significant public scrutiny. Since he committed to the crime, he was executed based solely on that, happened 2 years after his arrest. Capital punishment was carried out. He departed this world without further comment or note. News agencies were now all covering World War II, so these serial murders end up being forgotten. Also, Kiyono's father noted something about him. 3 years before the incident, the guy has been sent to Yasumizu because of trouble with his neighbors. This is interesting. It is, Kihei probably based his crime on the Obito legends. He wasn't in Yasumizu for long, yet he went and did something so awful. All Fujiyoshi's afraid of Obito, so maybe he turned around and tried to become one with them to seem scary. Perhaps he heard of the old rebellion that we village heads know about. Also curious about the timing. The feast during the war, the first real one, happened with 2 years after this incident. It's like a repeat. Yeah, it's like that time 500 years ago when they created the Shinai Faith to keep the rebels in check. Of course, no mention of the feast in the articles. Next notable thing was the time when the war ended, the soldiers returned to Fujiyoshi. These news articles were accompanied by the village PR notices and photos. One of the men in the photos had the name Shosaburo Makishima. Face's expression, I had no idea it was related to Kanzo Makishima. Many from Fujiyoshi had departed for the war, and naturally some of them were from Yasumizu. Also, according to the reports, they had a notably good survival rate. They also achieved a lot in the front lines. Pierre said the blessing of the Yokami-sama. Probably because they're a hunting village. In a different document, it said that they had charms that resembled the Okami symbols used in the mountain festival. Photos showed one of these crests wrinkled from where? The shape was new to me. Yeah, it's... However, the three diamond-like symbols made me think it was related to the ones I was familiar with. Which was actually pictured here. There we go, that's what I wanted to see. Text said some choose to wear ominous symbols instead. Reference was the divine crest of the Great Lord Shinai. Actually my first time seeing it, and apparently they couldn't use it as a good luck charm because it was just too important. Well, if it was that sacred, it made sense I hadn't seen Yasumizu. It was a bad place after all. Next, we skipped the important bits, such as the election results, major staff changes. We all went ahead a few decades, arrived at an article from the 80s. This is pretty bad. Cholera. Everybody got cholera. That's what happened. Mountain Village, 4 dead. Pretty simple incident, apparently. Someone had gone on a trip overseas that affected the village. Native patient 0 was hidden, but it had to be one of the village heads. They were the only ones who could travel to other countries. It was damn awful to read about, but apparently the disease spread through water contaminated by the first victim's vomit and excretion, and there were victims of both Fujiyoshi as well as Yasumizu. Also, it was only reported after the disease had subsided, which was probably caused by Miguruma Intelligence Network. Looking at when it happened, you should have been alive during this, right? You're in the middle school, I assume. Yeah, I know about it too well. I was affected myself after all. Oh, you had cholera? Yes, in fact, it got to a lot of people, especially here in Natsumizu. What, even though it's still here? Happened to Makishima. And oh yes, Imura had it. Yamawaki as well. The outbreak must have been pretty big. It was. Later on, I found that Nosato quickly identified as cholera, but the Miguruma. Oh, what? Miguruma probably told him not to treat it. Ah. Yeah, that's what they did. They made the absurd claim that Shinai-sama's protection would make it short work of the cholera and perform some strange ritual while attempting to prevent the Nosato from applying proper treatment. Thanks to that, the situation grew worse, and I, who got affected late, had my treatment postponed because I was one of us. You see, Nosato, our family, are a battle of doctors. As if. We simply adhere to the order established by Miguruma. Of course, Yasumizu was low on the list that caused death to two infected and two Uematsu who were treating the people. What? Two Uematsu? The Uematsu still had a few members back then, but most of them were infected while trying to make use of their folk medicine. Since that was found out, the disease had advanced so much they were beyond help and died soon after. Safe to say that event sealed the fate of the Uematsu. The Miguruma had handled things properly. No, that's not it. Nosato had done what any proper family doctor would do and simply ignored them and done the right thing. By the way, was Rikako infected? What? She was only 9 at the time. Surely understand that she was too young to partake in the family trade. Oh, I see. I knew what he meant, but something didn't feel right. His eyes betrayed a sense of confusion and his tone lacked confidence. Are you hiding something? No. It's nothing. Anyway, though this shows how warped Fujiyoshi is. It's not directly related to the feast. Yeah, you're right. I wouldn't push it any further this time. So the Miguruma family are the evil bunch. Like... This is definitely a good calculated way of getting rid of the Uematsu family for good. That's for sure. Another major article is the one about a corpse that had washed up in the local part of Serenega. It was a woman from Chiba, and she held a search party out, and she'd had a search party out for it. It said that she simply committed suicide. Is this related to the feast? No, the date doesn't match any of the feast so far. She must just be an unrelated suicide victim. Then there's idiots from the city coming here just to hang themselves, or get eaten by wild beasts. Me and the old man always have to deal with the mess. Not rare for Serenega to bring us corpses either. I don't know if they're the mountain fishers or something, but it's dangerous upstream, damn it. City person gone all the way here to die, huh? Well, maybe it's one of the village heads had her killed, but if that's the case, he wouldn't have left her in Serenega. Let's ignore that. What's this about a heavy rain from 8 years ago, though? It doesn't seem related to Fujiyoshi. I feel that it's important that Fujiyoshi's not mentioned here. There's reports of landslides all over the area, but none for Fujiyoshi. Ah. Interesting. See, so even one who's supposedly died in the landslide were hidden from public. Besides that, there's nothing to know. What's this, serial fires in Minato? Possibly arson? Why is it here? It's explained in the diary. It's not even reported, but all 7 buildings set on fire belong to the same person. What does that mean? It's the Miguruma. They have real estate outside Fujiyoshi as well. See, so they gave funds that way too. But why would they do this? Because the religion is profitable, no? A faith worth half a millennium of history behind it can't be considered a new religion. Must be a lot of Shinai believers outside as well, though they're probably not as fanatical as us. I imagine that some of their families have been donating to the shrine for generations. Are the Miguruma a recognized religion? I don't know that much, but I can imagine the country would be pretty involved with them if it was, no? Don't know, I'm not well versed in that. Now it seems to be the end. No, this seems to be the end. Yeah, you read the entire diary. Whole 3 hours have passed since we started. The mist will come soon. I learned a lot from this, but if you ask me, all I got were maybes. Nothing was certain yet. Even so, I thought it was more than enough for this loot. Oh, what to do? It looks like even Father went insane and drank poison without reaching the truth. If you're alright and I'm about to die in the feast, my brother would probably follow his footsteps. Or wait, if you die, will all this have never happened? Oh dear, looks like there's nothing we could do. His wry grin pained my heart a bit. I had to say it. I'm sorry, Nosato. Nothing you could. It's nothing you have to apologize for. It's Fujiyoshi's fault for doing something so absurd. But what's the cause of this madness controlling everyone here? Is it really just a fear of superstition and rebellion? No, that's not it. It's God's fault. Huh? You too? You're gonna shit the blame on the divine just like my forefathers did? Also, you still haven't given an explanation for the paranormal happenings you experienced. Sorry, but I actually think I could give a scientific or rather reasonable explanation for God. What? No, I still need to properly process this. Instead, I can give clear explanations for everything else. I missed my chance to properly apologize. How much time do we have, I wonder? Would they wait for long? They explain the mysteries of the feast. How do you explain the inescapable corruption? How does it find and punish you no matter how well you hide? Cameras and listening devices. That would make sense. Stare blankly for a moment and laugh. Of all the answers, cameras? No way they'd had those in the war. Not saying that they did. In fact, I'm sure if there were any 8 years ago either. Though there might be something basic back then. Hell, it could have been 2 cans and a string. Or perhaps they just put a spy in here. Now that would be excessive. What I'm saying is all of Yasumizu is being observed. Can't be. The village heads are too busy for that. But they're the same people who spend unbelievable amounts of effort to create the foundation for Shinai. I can understand how you feel. You find it absurdly hard to believe. But the incredulity you're feeling right now is exactly how magic tricks are kept secret. When you look at what magicians do, you find out there are either things that were too silly for someone to fall for, or extremely complex setups that made you believe they just couldn't have prepared them. The one where the audience turns into cherry blossoms is a good example. I've actually been suspecting that all Yasumizu were the targets of a really bad prank ever since I'd come here. Wait, then how do you explain the severely damaged corpses? They just carried them away and destroyed them with machinery or something. Doesn't make sense. You yourself said you can't leave Yasumizu once it's covered in mist. Must be secret underground passages or something. Wait. So they actually let loose some dogs, kill their targets, use the secret passage to bring the corpses back to Kami Fujiyoshi, then waste time to damage them, bring it back to Yasumizu? That's absurd. Too absurd. That's exactly why everyone believes them. And what about the doors that open when you touch them? Must be electronic remote-controlled locks. Those shabby, simply looking dwellings in Yasumizu? You know, the worst buildings have electronic locks. Make for a good camouflage, even. Then, how do you explain the Guardian marks drawn in blood? The result of Snake's investigations are also delivering blood text, right? You definitely know if it was human. Anesthetic gas gets the job done easy. Surely you know that a mix of nitrous oxide and a type of octogen creates the perfect anesthetic. It also has no smell. It's dangerous because of this, so people have to add something with a scent to it, but in this case, that's a benefit. Don't be stupid. Well, I admit you know a bit of medicine, but anesthesia is so difficult that there's even specialists. Well, there are specialists here besides Osato, right? Even if there are modified the dwellings large enough to create isolated spaces. There's no guarantee that anyone can safely come back from forced loss of consciousness to a place without any life support. Exactly, they don't have to come back. Even if someone ended up dying, they could just destroy the evidence, toss the body outside, and make them look like rule breakers who didn't shelter. That's how Chiemi survived. For so long out in the darkness, for why she didn't get forced put to sleep. We're all getting hit with gas. That's why we have to shelter at night so we can get a whiff of the gas. That is, oh my god. Make a room, my man. No. That's so absurd and vile. I know, I have a hard time accepting this too. But if it's possible that it's not the work of a god, if something mysterious can be explained using mundane means that was caused by mundane means, Funasato. Okay, I understand it's possible to make it happen. Why do you believe that's how it is? And why you apologized? The fact that this room was left as is means they either didn't find it or couldn't enter it. But now that we've made such a show for searching and argued so loudly, they must have noticed us. Assuming they, as you said, have cameras and listening devices. Yeah, we're as good as dead. Yep. If they notice us, they cannot let us live. They must kill us before the feast starts. This is... Yep. My consciousness began to fade. The irresistible drowsiness took over my body. You win. See? But didn't you have a better way to go about this? I'm sorry. Unable to stand, I fell to my knees, hit my forehead on the desk, but the pain was minimal. Didn't kill me, huh? I know you have one, old man. There. This is it. He can still move. Crawling on his hands and knees, he opened a drawer and took out a small glass bottle. If you die, it will all be done, won't it? Then take this aconite. It'd trouble you if they caught and interrogated you. I appreciate that. Reached out, took it, put it in my mouth. I'll have some too. Even if this will all be erased. Wasting all that my forefathers gathered would be a sin. Just one last sentence. I won't waste it. I promise. I just had to say that much. I now had a duty to fulfill for this awkward man. With every loop, I gained not only memories, but one-sided responsibilities as well. That meant that I really had to save everyone, right? Death came quick. So now that I know that this isn't some Will of the Crow, finally, key number 8. That is one of the most important keys next to 20. Bad ending number 11. Here we go. Let's see what we do here. Did it, Chief. You gained key 8, one of the final keys. This is one of the longest parts of the solution chapter, eh? There was a ton of content. Let's sum it up. Bad ending. Flirting in the dark with Kiona. Assassination. You obtained 2 important pieces of information this time. First was the long history Fujiyoshi is investigated by the village heads. Second was the surveillance network known as the Eye of the Miguruma. Haruaki had faintly suspected the existence of a surveillance network for a while now. That dumbass should have said something sooner. As for the history aspect, he got to the heart of the feast in Great Lord Shinai, I see. How will these bear fruit? Get hyped for that final acceleration. By the way, if you've been going the normal route, you should already have 4 of the last keys by this point. If you use 3 of them, you can unlock the lock at 2. Dead Smiths hide in the outhouse. You might find that really weird, but trust me, it's a really important branch. For those of you who have gotten the necessary keys, not a bad idea to see ending 3. Come and check the flow of events. Okay, that's it for this time. Die another hearty death. Alright, we're getting there. So now that I know that the Miguruma family is responsible for all this. Okay. I do believe I have all the keys for this. Yep, I have all the keys. Now it's time to confront God. Look for him. That him probably being either the monster or Nosato. At that moment, my head was flooded with information. Felt like my mind was crushed by a million sheep. Crap, again? With this timing, it's such a chaotic moment. I had lots to think about, but it'd be a waste of this loop. Oh, I should start by calming down. Chemi. Chemi. What? You still don't remember? Nice to meet you, Chemi. Oh yeah, right. I'm late, but nice to meet you, Haruaki. Don't make a sound. Stop, I was being serious. Since we started sharing memories, every loop, one of us, mostly Chemi, always forgot something, leaving it to the other to remember. What are you going to try next? I'm not great at night, as you know. Yeah, don't force yourself. I have an idea. Will you come back? Probably not. What are you going to do? I think I'd kill myself right here and now. Yeah, that's not a good habit to pick up. What if we have it by the time everything's solved? Yeah, not a good trend. I'll try whatever I can. Sorry, what will you try? Making a move on Yasu, maybe? Oh, go right ahead. Are you mad? No, it'd be weird if I was. Yeah, of course. That was a joke. I wouldn't do that. See you later. Had I been Had I been attacked just now? It's no big deal. I could easily control my feelings towards other people. Man, why was I so mad? Needed to get a hold of myself. I was down by myself, so what was there for me to do? I just remembered. I tried to solve that problem. Though it probably wouldn't be a solution. But if I didn't try, I felt like there'd be a trap waiting for me when I least expected it. And so I went to north of Yasumizu. The thicket near the graveyard was where that person supposedly lived. Naturally, it was empty. Then again, not much time had passed since the mist came. I hid in a bush not far away and watched the dwelling as the mist covered it. Just as I expected, the corruption to come after me. It's the old man who cried wolf, huh? Forgot. He showed up. The old man who cried wolf. He'd done some strange things over the loops, but always ended up dying. I assume that his seniality was just an act, but I still don't know the truth, though I gained more reason to suspect him recently. I'd love to expose him for who he was. I continued looking for my breath and watching him. Apparently in the hut he was carrying around a lot of dirty cloth bags. Saw it from behind the shabby wall here. So he was the spy for all of this? Good lord. The state of the place was one of the reasons I suspected him. Could this place, which had more holes in it than the outhouse, really be used for sheltering? Over the many loops I realized there was two primary dangers here in Yasumizu. One was the bringers of the corruption, as God said, the rabid dogs. And then there were the werewolf-like creatures that were probably Great Lord Shania's servants. You could beat the former, but not the latter. Normally the dogs upheld the order of the night. But if the rule breakers dealt with the dogs, that thing appeared, killed the rule breakers, and set things straight. I hadn't escaped that thing once so far. The dogs would definitely kill you if you slept in a place so damaged, and that was another thing I found suspicious about him. As it turned out, he really didn't have any intention of staying in his house. Yasumizu was deathly quiet, so it wasn't a good situation to try and tail him in. I had a feeling any rustling I made by moving around, I would tip him off. Still, I couldn't just watch him leave. Whatever. I just trust that he couldn't hear that far. Even so, I got on all fours and followed him, careful not to step on any leaves or loose twigs. Climbed over and collapsed Okuba too. I could only hope that wouldn't mean I was cursed or something. Well, if I was, I felt like God would have punished me by now. Yeah, I could be punished by looping it through this nightmare. Aren't we outside Yasumizu by now? The Yasumizu area was like a scar cut from the land, surrounded by cliffs. Was it okay as long as we didn't cross a cliff? In that case, I really should have looked in this overgrown area a bit more. There's still so many things I could try. It wasn't the time to despair. But damn, the old wolf guy seemed to know exactly where he was going. Was this hideout nearby? That sound was that water? Was there a river here? Looked around to find the source of the sound. Felt like it was straight ahead. There was a river in Yasumizu? Wait, where did he go? Pretty dark about now. Had I just lost sight of him? But I should have still been able to hear him walking around. Did he suddenly vanish? Well, if he could actually do that, it'd explain a lot of things about him. I had to find him. Carefully, though, I couldn't forget that he killed Mochi once. What if he already noticed me and was walking into an ambush? That wasn't the case, he just wasn't here. I had to find him. No way. There were two main things I found out as I walked around this area. There were no people, and the sounds of the water were coming from below. Apparently there was an underground waterway beneath here. When I stomped on the ground, it made a hollow sound. Probably used for the paddy fields. Water came here from the settlement above, flowed into Sereniga. I must have been dug a long time ago, was still in use today, or perhaps this place was inhabited before. Wait, if they could get drinking water from the wells, paddy fields needed a richer source of water, didn't they? What was its source, again? There was no river in Yasumizu, it only had little ponds. Documents from Nosato mentioned that Yasumizu had its waters carried via irrigation from Kamifujiyoshi. Was that it? That case is a pretty major piece of property. How do they maintain it? If it was buried underground, it did get blocked every now and then? Would it be possible for there to almost be no people going in and out of it? About the wolf guy's disappearance. Could he have entered the waterway? There was some sort of secret entrance here and went through it when I wasn't looking. It was already dark out, so I took out a flashlight from my bag and pointed at the surface. The dogs would arrive soon. I had to find it before then. Is this it? There was a patch of ground that was higher than the rest. It could easily be mistaken for just an irregularity on the terrain. But if it wasn't, I was dead. I put my finger in and felt something made of stone inside. Oh, there was like someone was messing with the ground here daily. Would this happen if I turn it around? Ugh. I did it. Stone plate that covered the waterway was lighter than expected. I could now hear the water clearly. The waterway was unexpectedly large. A single person could easily walk through it if they crouched a bit. Had the old wolf guy gone through it here too? If he had, surviving the night by hiding here would be a new thing for me. I could try it. Flashlight in mouth, I went inside. Turned the plate though. Well, I didn't know if the dogs would come after me, but I could probably fool the thing. But in I went. It'd be completely dark if I didn't have my flashlight. The water here was only about 3 centimeters deep, but the flow was pretty fast. There's gonna be lots of stones at the bottom. It was unexpectedly well designed. Hard surface made it impossible to slip, so it'd be pretty dangerous for me here if the current got any faster. If we carried straight to Saranega, it'd be a water slide of death. I had to start by searching the opposite direction. Waterway slightly curved as I continued walking. Could breathe normally, but the tunnel was extremely claustrophobic. Where was I right now? Walked up 100 or so steps. I had to be at least under the plaza. Suddenly I realized something. The flow had stopped. The water flow below me was just a small trickle now. There had been a decent flow coming up from up ahead. Had someone stopped me? I had a bad feeling about this. It was night. If someone was controlling the water, it couldn't have been someone from Yasumizu. Tried pushing up, but nothing happened. The stone plate from before was the only place I could move. I was going to the surface at this time meant certain death at the hands of the wolves. I had to continue. As I pressed on, the dry tunnel began to widen. I could walk normally now. It was a large underground passage they created by digging through bedrock. Like I expected, there was no major irrigation set up here. There was a... As I thought that, I saw a tunnel to the side. It started about my waist level. Even if the water was running, it wouldn't flow in there. Felt like I could crawl inside, but for now I'd just try going forward. More and more tunnels at the sides. The main waterway became more complex, with 90-degree angles and steps and stuff. When I got on a waist-high step and took a break, I heard a sound. Coming from far away ahead. It was familiar to me. It sounded claws on a heavy floor. Ragged breathing. Growls full of uncontainable bloodlust. The feeling that there was a pack nearby. Dogs! Crap. What can I do here? Enter a tunnel? I looked inside a tunnel and lit it up with my flashlight. Couldn't see anything inside. No. There were dogs in there too. There's no safe space here? And no choice but to run back. That was when... Yep, the old man. What's wrong? That voice. You again lost? Directed the flashlight, the source of the voice. Ah, right. One of the tunnels about as high as my waist. The old wolf guy looked at me as the light made him cover his eyes. Sorry, are you okay? It's dangerous here. It's safe here. It's safe here. Excuse me? This is the most safe place. That's why I'm here. Really? You'll die if you stay there, though. I knew it. Please help. Huh? Please help me. Come in. The old man turned around and crawled deeper in the tunnel. Well, I was supposed to follow him, huh? Felt like I was getting close to the truth. There were many beasts behind me. I gulped intense as all hell, crouched and entered the hole. I had to crawl for about a minute while lighting up the old guy's ass, so we were in the same theme park attraction. Hey, there we go. With those words, we entered a larger space. Followed after him. It was a room. Neither large nor small. It was about the size of 4.5 tatami mats. Okay, so it's not that small, but not that large either. Seemed to be made of wood. The humidity in here made everything moldy. Looked like antique workmanship to me. Crawled inside. Once I stepped, I felt like something other than rock under my feet. It was really unstable. Confused, I tried to use my flashlight to see, but that was when the old wolfman lit a match. A match? Used it to light a lamp. Made the place bright. I finally realized that this place was a literal dump. A piece of cloth, vinyl bags, plastic bottles filled with liquids I don't want to know about. The entire floor was covered in such things we were walking on. It had to be a place where he slept. Looked around, the wolfman pushed me away from the entrance. A one? A two? And then he pushed the heavy-looking stone back, showing us with a heavy thud. We're safe now. Safe. Sit. Didn't want to, but I had no choice. Went deeper and sat down on a pile of garbage, so I did the same. Felt myself sinking to the floor. Eat, here. Took something out of the cloth bag he brought and extended it to me. Bread roll inside a plastic bag, specifically one made by the most famous makers of the stuff. You could get this anywhere. However, it was weird to see it in Yasumizu. It was a settlement detached from the outside economy, so it didn't fit at all. Yet this place didn't have tons of such stuff. I'll have it then. Looked at the surface of the bag. It was made less than a half a month ago. It wasn't even past its best before date. Where did you get it? Eat, and drink this. He gave me a cracked teacup, and it was a transparent liquid. What's this? Drink. What's this? Booze. Took it and smelled it. Wasn't sure about it, but it seemed like alcohol, but I wasn't too sure what to think of the little bug in there. Didn't mind drinking it, but I had to make my position clear. Thank you for helping me. Came here to talk to you. Drink. Act like you don't know anything, but you do, right? I came to ask about the Feast of the Yomi Purge. You survived the previous feast. I want to ask you about that. Drink. Okay. Go down the counter of the teacup. Ugh. It was rotten, but I was able to go up and down without vomiting. Thank you, old wolf guy. Or should I call you? The main culprit behind the 20 murders at Fujiyoshi break-ins. So you knew about that, youngin'. Oh, there we go. Now it comes to light. Now his secret comes to light. So you knew about that, huh, youngin'? I knew it. Yep. Yeah, they never... They only had the guy's confession. However, considering the idea that there were multiple culprits, some things made more sense. Due to the distance and difference in quality of life, the people of Yakan Fujiyoshi didn't know much about Yasumizu and what kind of people lived there. There was also the fact that the supposed murderer, Kie, wasn't mentioning Yakan Fujiyoshi. He still turned himself in. That meant that the witness at Yakan Fujiyoshi had known about what Yasumizu people were up to. When the police went to Yasumizu to investigate after the confession, the people only said things that supported the idea that he'd done it. This meant that the people of Yasumizu weren't aware of these actions, and that those weren't suspected could easily have been complicit in it. The old wolf guy had been considered not a son of mine for a long time, so he'd been ignored. That hadn't changed even now, and he'd gotten to the point that no one cared if he just vanished into thin air for no apparent reason. Considering his character alongside the time of the incident, he had been in his 30s then. And that his mental state is just an actor, he's to conclude that he was the type of man who could commit murder. I mean, he killed Mochi, after all. He was the true evil hiding Yasumizu, a serial murderer who escaped divine punishment and survived. Did Miguruma finally come to get me? No, that'd be weird. You don't know jack about this tunnel, eh? I don't get you. You a cop or something? I'm someone who wants to stop the Feast of the Yomi Purge. Stop. Now ain't that brave. You want to fight the Miguruma, huh? Damn fool. I know that the Miguruma are directly responsible for the feast, and that this won't be easy. I'm not here to expose your past crimes, I just need your opinion. You're someone who broke the laws of both Yasumizu and Fujiyoshi collectively, after all. He went quiet, and that ain't fun for me at all. He made an expression that was new to me, a display of unconcealed malice. What? Next moment, I heard a sound behind me and turned around. They're here. There was a sound of claws scratching on the boulder covering the entrance. It was accompanied by growls. The bringers of the corruption? You know that much and yet you still come here. I don't get you. He probably wouldn't understand if I told him that I had nowhere else to go. Dude, you plan to avoid the situation by closing yourself in like this? Yeah. I'm safe right now. I just eat, sleep, and don't have a care in the world. The feast comes, I just play around and hide here. I ain't uncomfortable, not one bit. He intentionally twisted his laughter as his shoulders shook. You'd be uncomfortable if people found out about the crime, wouldn't you? Also, why are you so confident that it's safe here? You think you can hide from Miguruma for long? Hide? You don't know shit, do you? Miguruma already know about me. You know about the eye of the Miguruma? Then why'd you ask? You're trying to bait me, huh? He was right, the guy was ever sharper than I imagined. I'd already confirmed that Miguruma had a surveillance network spanning all of Yasumizu. There were these tunnels too. The scratching dogs behind me made it clear that they were commencing the feast. In that case, there was no way they didn't see this place. That meant that they knew about this man who was hiding underground. Hell, the fact that he'd been given the role of the Badger made it clear that he was involved in the feast. His situation wasn't like mine from the first time, when Meguruma simply didn't see me and didn't put me in the feast. There could only be one answer to this. The Meguruma know about you and use you for the feast, but they aren't trying to take your life. Is that because your death would be bad for them? Heh, you can talk good, huh? When you're my age, even that makes me jealous. Can you answer me? Sure, the sleepiness ain't coming yet. Well now, I silently prepared myself. His story could be summed up like this. He was indeed the culprit, a serial killer who killed about 10 people in the incident back in the 1940s. However, the one who had the idea was Toshitani, the one to get executed. Toshitani was a Kamifujiyoshi person, sent to Yasumizu, and though he wasn't the violent sort, being sent to Yasumizu left a deep-seated grudge. Constantly grumbled about it and why he couldn't get used to his life here no matter what. He was an outcast to everyone except the old wolf guy. He often told about the outskirts of Yasumizu that I'd get back to Kamifujiyoshi eventually. So I threw fuel on the fire, told him to do whatever he wants and all that. It had really been all he'd done, then Tochi would be pretty murderous to begin with. It was bad enough that he'd actually went through this with his feeble-minded friend's idea. Anyway, that led to the plan, if you could call it that, to kill as many people as possible. Now, on the day it was time to kill, the old wolf guy given lots of divine psyche he'd stolen from the hall. Once they were drunk, they both covered themselves in Serenega's mud and moved out. I asked if it had something to do with the Fujiyoshi myths, and the answer was yes. Match what I learned in Osato Mansion, that the origin of the Obito legends were the Yasumizu rebels. The old wolf guy was probably the reason why an ex-Kamifujiyoshi person found out about Yasumizu legend so quickly. Anyway, still drunk and looking like the Obito began the massacre. The old wolf guy, covered in mud himself, secretly watched as he stole valuables from the place. Mentioned that the burglary was his main objective. Since he didn't want to leave any evidence, wanted to make it seem like the massacre was the goal, he only took the bills from the wallets as well as various envelopes. I had a hard time deciding whether to use the mass murder to get rich was subtle or blunt. Though, at that moment, something he didn't expect to happen. It was damn good. Everyone who saw us was so scared they pissed themselves and fell. No one resisted one bit. So I figured I'd try to kill them. It'd be all his fault after all. That's a human thing to think, right? I had a good time there, youngin'. No comment. The fact that no one resisted was related to the absolute loyalty and the faith that Nosato looked into, the god problem. Anyway, he went on to kill over a dozen people, steal lots of valuables, and escape before the things escalated. As he washed off the mud, returned to his place, looked through his clothes, he found something really noteworthy. A piece of paper he found inside an envelope with money. Quickly understood what it meant, and it was huge. He escaped, turned himself in with the police of Tokyo, claiming it was all his own doing, and the story ended with the execution. He was small and petty. He must have realized what he'd done after he sobered up. He did have the guts to run, though. However, while the national reports of the serial killing society, things had started to change. Village heads and their associates began visiting Yasumizu more and more often. For unknown reasons, more and more people were sent to Yasumizu. And a while later, a real feast of the Omi Purge began. Old Wolf Guy hadn't participated in many conversations with Yasumizu, so he only found this out during the first feast. Apparently Meguruma had been acting shady, and it was because they were searching for something. The something was stolen from one of the murder scenes. They talked that it might have been something necessary for the rituals, like a talisman or something. They even speculated the Okami returned because of it. As the rumor mill churned, the old wolf guy was the only one who knew the truth. So the question is now, what was it? It was the thing he found. It was something that'd be bad for the Meguruma. What was it? A copy of a human trafficking contract. Holy crap, Jamie. Your family are pieces of shit. Human trafficking, but that wasn't so uncommon back then. It wasn't, but still. No one knew that the Meguruma were buying people. What do you mean? The people they brought aren't anywhere. There's no job for them to do. What do you think happened to them, huh? They use them for the messed up rituals and experiments. Oh, you know your stuff. I don't know the details, but it wasn't something they wanted others to know about. Families like the Meguruma don't want that kind of stuff made public. That's why they started the farce of a feast. I knew that, so I wasn't scared one bit. That meant the old wolf guy was the only one who knew that the phenomenon that started it all was just a Meguruma conspiracy. It had been bad for them if the scandal spread throughout Fujiyoshi. It could potentially undermine both the local faith and their influence. They frantically debated how to preserve their secret and with it, their authority. Looked at it from a certain angle, it was to prevent another Yomabito rebellion, so the main cause of this was basically God again. I saw how it was now. Anyway, the old wolf guy knew the truth. Thus he used his guile, got his target's heads, and tried to figure out what they were doing. That's how he found this waterway. Everyone knows that this waterway is underground, but it belongs to Count Fujiyoshi. They just loan it out. So no one in Yasumizu knew what this kind of thing was. Don't even think about it. Those who did find it end up killed. But I prepared for it. That was the core of the matter. He'd somehow established contact with Meguruma, and told him that he had the contract that got public if he died. If they didn't want that, they had to ensure his safety. He used the info as a hostage to protect himself. It was an action movie plot, but could it work in real life? Fujiyoshi was a small village. If he asked someone to reveal the truth if he died, they could just take care of that person too. I asked about that and he said they had a contact in Tokyo. This is when I found he wasn't born in Yasumizu. It's probably like me who tried to move to Yasumizu. He arrived here as a drifter and got sent here. He was pure evil. Scumbag would come here just to deceive people and commit terrible acts. Anyway, the villains and the prey villain met to create a villainous pact. Every year, he went outside the village to secretly reach out his contact in Tokyo. If he didn't show up even once, his contact would reveal Meguruma's secret to the public. And if they didn't want that, they had to keep him alive. Of course, I had questions. What would happen if the wolf guy died a natural death, or the Meguruma became unable to keep their end of the deal because the leader changed or something? In response to that, he said that was a battle of wits. Meguruma weren't actually certain that the old wolf guy's death would mean that their secret would come out. Probably didn't want this weapon had survived a whole 60 years and made it to the modern era. Also was a question whether such old scandal would deal much damage to the modern Meguruma. They were still afraid of the worst-case scenarios, though. To allay their fears to buy more time, they left the old man alive. It was a small price to pay for the feeling of safety. If it cost anything more, though, he'd have been removed a long time ago. Old wolf guy's own words. Showed a skill at negotiating, particularly to villains. He was proud of it. I see. So you can enter this place because you're on a secret contract with the master of the feast. And you can do things against the laws of the feast because corruption won't apply to you. Is that how it is? Yeah. Interesting, ain't it? You're the only one I ever told it to. He whispered that and drank some rotten booze. How was I to process this? Well, is it possible to negotiate with Meguruma? No way. Like you said, this deal was only accepted because of how small a price they were paying. They'd never agree to stop the Feast of the Yomi Purge. They wouldn't tolerate my goal. I could only achieve it by making an enemy of them. In fact, stopping the Feast was even my ultimate goal at this point. That meant that this time, the only thing I gained was physical protection in the form of this underground waterway. Oh, there was another thing. I realized I couldn't let my guard down around this person. That was good enough for me. So, when will it start working? Huh? I mean, the booze you gave me was poison, right? What are you on about? Don't play dumb. Keeping you safe as cheap, as if. You're an insane villain who can break the deal at any moment. No normal villain would just let you be. Such exchanges normally involved a mediator of sound-minded end, without anyone feeling wronged. There has to be another reason why they kept you alive, such as something that made your life beneficial to their projects. For example, you could have been assigned to take care of anyone who saw things they shouldn't have or went somewhere they didn't belong. Having cameras wasn't enough. You also need an on-site operator to dole out punishments. Otherwise, you'd have to send out people every time it happened. It was better if less people knew about these dark happenings. In that case, it was best to leave the protection of the secrets to the Yasumizu trader. Basically, he was. There's no poison. It's just something that numbing for whoever's not used to it. I couldn't stand up. Couldn't feel my legs, and it wasn't because I'd been sitting for too long. As I tried not to let it show on my face, he started rummaging through the garbage. Oh. Well, I'll get at it later. He took out something that I could never forget. It was the masterpiece of the wolf outfit. To toss it aside, he put his hand on another mountain of trash. Took out something else. It was a dagger. Young'un, you're like me. That's the face of a villain. You see stuff, you know stuff, you must be pulled some shit. You must have pulled some shit outside. Now you escape because you're bored? You remind me of me when I was a youngin'. Oh, how I wanted him to spare me that shit. Give up, though. I'm enough for this village. He was right. Anyway, time for my first kill in 8 years. You were a wolf 8 years ago, weren't you? That was fun. How many wolves did you kill until then? Out of the 3, only my son. I was a crow, so I knew. In the feast 8 years ago, the mist had cleared with only one of the wolves dead. If Jen, the one who knew about the badger, was one, the third one had to be around too. It wasn't guaranteed that it was the old wolf guy, but as it turned out, the truth was always the worst possible option. One more question. Have you met God? He had to have. It didn't matter that he was an outsider. Even Kaori, who come from Tohoku, had been affected by it. He couldn't have been an exception to that. If he really was a scumbag like me, admitting that he'd submitted to God must have been extremely humiliating for him. He didn't reply. This is God's garden. If you're that smart, you could have escaped far away from here. You have no future. I hope that my words would help me get back at him a little. Didn't want to lose completely this time. But he's just a murderous old man. He laughed. Listen, youngin', this ain't God's garden, but my fortress. Run wherever you want, but there's no safer place than your own fortress. You need a fortress for protection. Things haven't changed since samurai times. It's people that don't get what they're scared of, stuff you can't see, like God. Then, the numbness was starting to get to my lips. You were never afraid of God? God ain't scary. There's no fakery in his words. Anyone made by people can't be killed. He said that. He swung down the blade. He said I ain't got a future. I'm 95. Hearing shit about the future from a youngin' that's about to die, it just makes me laugh. Oh. He had a point. I really underestimated him. He was right. You need a place for protection. And then there was this idea that you could kill God. His serpentine wisdom had let him survive for several decades all by himself. He really was pure evil. The evil I discovered many loops ago was incomparable to him. He was a true villain. Well, I really don't mind what happened here. His fate was to die at the hands of Chiemi or Kanzo, one of the foolish Yasubiza people he looked so down upon. I had no reason to tell him that, but it was really humiliating to die at the hands of such a cartoonish villain. Interesting. True evil, key number 1. Game over. Bad ending number 1. Hell yeah. You did it, Chief. You attained key number 1, one of the final keys. This was the hardest key to get. With this, you've all but won. Bad ending 1. Old man rants death. Finally filled the number 1 spot. That's been blank since the start. You've almost done, huh? Man, what a refined system. Fourth wall breaking, man. This time around, the veil of mystery surrounding that old man for so long was finally lifted. It was suspected he wasn't actually senile for a while, but we finally got confirmation. But damn, turns out he was a real hell of a bad guy deep down. But it seems Haruaki found an important idea in exchange for his life. Well, it's a pretty worthless idea, though. And with that, you now have the final 5 keys, provided you did this in order. For those who don't, go to 5, How to Pass Time, and get the final key. Then once you have them all, go to 6, Darkness Despair. There, go for the answer other than despair. Though I guess it's all kinds of weird for me to say that, considering my main story self is gonna flip a lid. Well, I'm an interface character, so cut me some slack here. Okay, that's it for this time. Die another hearty death. Alright. Go back to the chart. Whoa. As I was looping back, I actually thought to myself for the first time. Seemed that was enough. Seemed the plan had finally come together. At the end of the long loop, I saw a brilliant light. All that was left was to meet with that person. Interesting. That was a little different. Anyways. No. I want to go here. I want to see all the keys. Yes, we have all of them. All the keys are done. Oh, man. So beautiful. Alright. So now, back to darkness. All the way down. All the way down. Despair. We're finally here. Alright. Call for that person. Alright, I remember it now. Went outside, ignored the monster, and shouted, "Sheep! Sheep!" Suddenly, the world turned gray and that person appeared before me. You dumbass! You dumbass! You dumbass! There you are. And 3 dumbasses. That's mean. Read the mood. I ain't Ogon bad. I told Gar to come back here again. Oh, so each of the 3 were for a separate thing. I see, I see. What? Now? Huh? What do we do about this? There's no way to recover. We don't have to. Huh? I have everything figured out. Said that with a serious tone. Wait, does that mean... Ah, look, the monster launched some beams now. There goes the city. What's with your attitude? You went against the warning, so that's your responsibility, you sheep shit idiot? I got called sheep shit by a sheep. You're dead. I'll kill you right now. Need time to solve this thing, right? Huh? Resolving this incident wouldn't be easy. There were 3 things that had to be done. I had to stop the people of Yasubiza from killing each other in the feast. I had to deal with the master of the loop, who wanted the monster's resurrection. And I had to deal with Miguruma, the leader of the feast. First one would be the hardest. I had to prepare for it, for the big act. Sheep, I need your help. Can you send me as far back as possible? Told you there wouldn't be a second time. They'll notice me if I do it now. That's fine. Huh? Let them know. The only risk of doing that is that you won't be able to control the dream again. That means that you and me both would be taken in by the loop, no longer store memories, and just repeat the same things. You ain't wrong. So I'll go back using your powers, and you'll be noticing it soon by the dream. But it'll all be fine if I just solve the problem, right? There are 3 problems. First, I have no idea how much time before the starting point I can go back to. Could it just be a few hours? Next would be a gamble whether you'll keep your memories. There's no guarantee they won't be lost when I manipulate the dream. Lastly, you sure you can solve it all? Don't mess around. I'm just not sure if I can do this flawlessly. I'll do it for sure, though. At worst, I'll suffer some damage, but, well, I'll still pull it off, I guess. Guess it won't do. Then I'll guarantee I'll do it. In exchange, you swear you'll do your part. At worst, give me at least 1 whole day since the starting point and make my memories as complete as possible. If I lose just one thing, my guarantee will be void. Don't get uppity with me now. Well, if I don't turn it back, this country will be over. You knowingly left me no other choice, didn't you? Yeah. I'd say this kind of resolve is actually necessary to beat this bad guy. Mess up and I'll kill you, got it? Good try. Fine. Come, ship from 1,000,000 sheep. Wait, what? Hold on. Shut up. Drown in 1,000,000 tons of shit is how you deserve to die after what you pulled. 1 ton per sheep? Just how many months worth of shit is that? 100 million it is. Ah, I'm sorry. My apology went unheard. Interesting. 510. Shit. Huh? Woke up. It's a pleasant awakening. The general discomfort of the room was that awful inn I'd visited. Heh. Awake, I see. What, a hostess came in? Just like that? At least it was that needlessly energetic proprietress. This night sure was fun. It's been a while, so I assume I don't really remember it. That's for the best. Don't want to remember it. See me? Nothing, just talking to myself. Would you like some breakfast? I'm good, thank you. Staying again? I'd rather die. How sad. I'll point about 50 people I don't like for this place, so you can take care of them. That'd help. I'm checking out. Thank you. What was with this place? Anyway, since I was staying here, that meant I checked the calendar. My phone file was Saturday, May 10th. I get lost in the mountain on the night of the 11th, and the mist would come at the evening of the 12th. I'm way far back now. And for what I could tell, I could remember everything. What I recalled was Jimmy's first starting point. I was upset I couldn't tell her about this, but I hope she remembered everything too. Anyway, it looked like the sheep did what it had to. I just have to fix the problem. Well, it'd work out. I wrote something down and left the inn. It was a list containing things I needed and things I had to do to solve the problem. I knew the 3 things I had to do pretty well. I had to stop the people from killing each other. I had to deal with the master of the loop, who wanted the monster's resurrection. And I had to deal with the Bigoruma, leaders of the feast. Things wouldn't be solved if at least one of them wasn't cleared, and unlike before, I only had one chance. Pretty bored if I messed up after all this resolution. I'd just take it easy. Humming the song of the same name, I slowly parked my bike. After filling up the tank in the nearest place, I looked at the map again. Main road was packed right now. I had to pick the quickest route while avoiding it. Didn't know the lay of the land, but I knew my destination, so it wouldn't be hard to get there. From my current perspective, the me from weeks, no, months ago, I had abandoned all responsibility, just wandered aimlessly out of frustration and abundance of free time. I was different now. I had a goal, a place I had to go to, and people who needed me. Thus, I didn't have to hesitate anymore. I had to hurry to Fujiyoshi. Misty place there called the Werewolf Village, the Misty Garden of God. Alright. Gotta go back to this bitch. So now I am on to 7 myth. Alright, went without any breaks, stopped only to refuel and finally arrived. Honestly, I could barely stand, but my thirst and hunger were way worse. I had to rest at least once, seriously. My thoughts were dulled. I needed to raise my blood sugar. But there's something I had to do before that. Are we gonna piss her off again? Hello. I'm back, sheep! What the hell are you saying? What, you thought I wouldn't figure it out? You're the sheep, aren't you? I don't know what you're on about. Get out. I made you try and talk your way out of this while acting like that. Oh well. How'd you know? You're the only one with such an insane fashion sense around these parts. Locals gotta go to 100 yen shops for their fashion. And no person without ulterior motives would recommend that road. That's all? What a stretch. Sorry, anyway, give me something to eat. Yeah, the almost expired stuff for free. Loyal to the role, huh? Shut it. Take the freebies, but I'd like to order some strange things. Sir, this is a convenience store. I gotta say that, you know? As if it matters at this point. Damn, you're a pain. Hey, sheep, how are you doing? I knew there's something off about you, but you being the sheep? Here's a note. What the hell? Piss off with this shit. How much is this gonna cost? Can't get it? Just wait. Thank you. Leave the rest to me. You sure you're gonna go in that state? Shouldn't you rest a bit? Do I look that bad? No, actually, you look like you're ready to take on the world, and that's what worries me. Don't overdo it and snap under the pressure. Sorry for making you worry. By the way, I just realized I might have been used by you people without realizing it. Why am I the one apologizing? Don't worry about it. The slow. Well, whatever. I just want to be able to end it with that. It was fun. By the way, did the enemy find you? They realize something's wrong. I'm on the run right now, but they'll have me soon. Their enemy was the mastermind, the creator of the loop. She was probably fighting her own battle already, one beyond my area of expertise. Well, I'll run as fast as I can. Maybe you get a good distraction while you do your thing. That'll help a lot, please do. Can I ask something now? Sure, go ahead. How long are you going to continue this act? This is the last time. Well, if you come back alive, I'll spare you the punch. She used me for all I was worth, then said she'd punch me if I died. It was kind of amazing, really. I couldn't tell if she was the one hell of a Cinderella or just insane. See ya. Yeah. Hit my impression and just got back to my bike. Tons of stuff I had made a rustling sound. Through my dozen times being killed by Chiemi, I memorized the path here, so that was all. So well that I was sick of it. Passed a small overpass, stopped my bike at the boulder, and took off my helmet. This might have been Okuba too. Sign leading to Fushioshi and Yatsubizu. Placed the bike under a tree, by the side of the road, placed what I had on the ground, and locked the bike. Then I hung the helmet's ring over the chain lock. After that, I opened the large mountaineering bag and took out whatever I needed right now. A headlamp. It was a big fit, but fit well. It shone bright, lasted long, and was resistant to water. Something loud happened outside. This was a mountaineering stick. I'd already been unpacked it. I already unpacked it in the store. I had to make sure I didn't get hurt. My time being limited, I had to buy safety with money. Put on the backpack, putting the weight of all the stuff onto it on my shoulders. I had to hurry. I'd waste an entire hour just getting there. As the sound of water became louder, and I finally made my way through the darkness and arrived at Saranaga Rapids. I hastily took off my pants, got on some loose trunks, and covered my feet, work tabby, and climbing sandals. Placed my clothes in the waterproof backpack, closed it, and put it on again. For my fights with Chiemi, I found out that crossing Saranaga was pretty dangerous. It'd be too pathetic if I fell and died here. I just couldn't let that happen. Anyway, it was time to go. After rustling coming from the backpack, I felt like someone was laughing at me, saying that my worries were for nothing, that I was jumping at shadows. A cold stream of May numbed my skin. I felt like it was trying to sap the warmth from my body, but I couldn't give up. If I did, this would have all been for nothing. Too many people would suffer. However, I wasn't motivated by some sort of justice, a sense that I had to protect them. I was just interested in the fact that this struggle would end up saving so many lives. It was an amazing trade. I also wanted to get even with some people and set myself free of this one-sided obligation. It was a selfish motivation, but that was exactly what I could give it my all. I made it through the water and reached the other side. Naturally, there was no girl sawing off her shotguns here, or the flashlights she brought. Not this day, anyway. I arrived. Everything was expected so far. Now, I dropped the climbing stick in the water, so that wasn't great. It was within my margin for error, though. I had to calm down. Getting distracted by mistakes would keep me from focusing. Looked at my phone. It was out of service range, of course. The time was 12:53 a.m. Pretty early. It'd work out. Changed my clothes and shoes, then got on the cliff. Shit. Remember, told me the cliff was the most dangerous place, especially for a non-local like myself. Tried to be careful, obviously, but the other stick I used for climbing broke. I almost fell and reflexively used my hands, cutting them on the sharp stone. To make it up the cliff, I took some whiskey, disinfected the wound, applied some first aid with a handkerchief. About what to do next, this wound was really painful. Maybe I had to look back and... Of course, that line I think would become habitual. It was a good thing I overprepared. I only had one life now, so I had to keep that in mind. That slight shift in mentality got back to work. First one of the 3 objectives. I had to stop the people from Yasumizu from killing each other at the feast, and this was actually the hardest thing to do. Thus, I had to be both extremely careful and extra prepared. I would be proving a hypothesis. I was really pissed, and I hadn't thought of this sooner. I'd have loved to try it when resetting was still an option, but I was pretty confident I was right. If it wasn't here, it had to be in another place that I knew well, but this one seemed way more likely. I began preparing. Took out the 20-meter long climbing rope. I had 5 spares, 100 meters, the bag 2. Of course, they took up the most space in the backpack. Freeing one of them up, tied it up as soon as I was preparing to hang someone in the feast. Passed one swivel ring through the rope, hanging the other one in another climbing rope, made a 40-meter rope. It was enough to cover a cliff this tall. With this, I now had a way down below the hanging pine. I fixed the stopper I'd already tied to my waist on the rope and created a lifeline for myself. At least I thought I did, but I had no experience with this. Still, I had to do it. Holding onto the rope, it began to slowly going down. At first, I spun around, messed up while handling the stopper, slid down a few times, and was generally on the verge of getting myself killed. Yeah, I'm not a fan of rappelling down the way. I had to do that in the military, let me tell you. My lifeline, the guy that could hold the rope back to stop me from falling, wasn't paying attention. I learned that after I got down. Good times. Good times. Eventually, I began stopping the spin by touching the grass and branches on the cliff and figured out how to rappel down slowly. Finding what I was looking for while climbing down was hard work. Felt water drop on my forehead and thought it was rain, though I realized it was actually blood from my hands. falling from the rope above me, made me keenly aware of the pain and pressure from using my aching hand. Brought back my exhaustion, drowsiness, muscle pain. Came with a mental fatigue, and I couldn't have come at a worse time. Why was I doing this? The stupidity of it came back to me. What if this was all for nothing? Of course it was. Shit. Before I knew it, I was muttering some profanities. Felt like it would help me shake off the urge to cry, the pain, the misery, and the patheticness. Even so, I had to be here. The entrance had to be closed. All of Yasumizu had taken it for granted that people had to be hanged from the pine. That wasn't word of mouth or anything. It was an idea that came naturally. This was with them their whole lives. That meant this was pretty much worked with God. However, the idea of hanging one side of the rope on the tree, the other on the neck, then push the victim off, felt illogical. Were they doing it because the only cleanup they had to do then was cutting the rope? Well, during the feast, the corpses did fall to Sarnega every now and then. Like the sound had to be God's doing. That wasn't always the case. Some corpses had been cut off on the cliff or fell in the riverbank. Whenever that happened, the body was not only cleaned up, it became a very real bother, reeking and full of disease. If you just wanted to hang the victim, all you had to do was put the rope over a branch and pull it up. That was often done outside of here. If what mattered to them was dropping the body in Sarnega, then pushing them off was enough. If they were just focusing on making a kill certain, there weren't many times you could actually do this. And I think that a murder method that had only been done in several dozen or so years would become part of Yasumizu's common soul. That seemed especially unlikely when, for the past 500 years or so, locals only used the feast to control the local community. In that case, I imagine the truth was different. The hanging wasn't for killing. It was to meet God. That unique way of praying, where they joined their hands to hide their faces, had to represent the remains of the lifeline they held before God. Thus, I'd surely arrive there if I went down. I believe that. Believe. Something suddenly appeared. Got midway down the cliff, on one of the links between the climbing rope. Found a large boulder sticking out from the bottom directly across from me. It was large enough to stand on. There were pine saplings on it, probably the children of the hanging pine. Looked suspicious. I had to get there, so I began swinging. Moved my legs and waist slowly created a swinging motion. The climbing rope made noise as I clung to it. The fear of it disconnecting and the fear of it hitting the boulder struggled violently, but I managed to ignore them. When the swing was good enough, I waited for when I was over the boulder and stuck my legs out. I ended up having to grab the little pines, and my hands hurt like hell because of the prickliness, but that didn't matter now. Just as my headlamp started examining the place more thoroughly. Bingo. Right behind all the growth there was an aged wooden torii.
Yes.
Yeah. Felt my vigor return, but I needed to press on. Behind the torii, there was an aged door sealed by decayed chains. Pulled on it, and the chains just broke, letting me go in. This was no way to hide a god, people of Fujiyoshi. I opened the door wide, hunched down, and stuck my head in the hole. It was big enough for a crouching adult to pass through. It was a hole the side of the cliff, angled slightly upward. It was an artificial place created by digging through the rock here. It was dry inside, probably due to the slope and the door protecting it. Alright, it wasn't exactly what I expected, but it was pretty damn close. Now, I needed to secure a way to get here from the bottom, create a camp, and take away the route from the top. Thankfully, the young trees here were firmly planted at large trunks, so I could easily tie a climbing rope around them and make my way down. With this and that, I successfully went down the riverside below. I then got back up to the hanging pine, got my stuff, and took care of the climbing rope. Some would come to the graveyard before the mist began, so they'd know something was up if they saw the rope. It all would go to waste then. I had to hide until the mist came. This, too, was part of stopping the people of Yasumizu from killing each other in the mist. It was absolutely necessary for the cause. I began creating the riverside camp. Actually, it was on the rocky area above the riverbed. They couldn't see me from the top if I was here, and a flood due to the rain wouldn't be a problem. Though it wasn't much of a camp, just took a blanket and lay down. After drinking some bottled water, I looked at my phone. It's past 3 on Sunday. There'd be rain in 24 hours, and Sarnega could gain some water. I had to get everything done in the hole until then and prepare for the great act. But, well, it was soon enough for today. It was enough today. Man, am I tired. I arrived at Yasumizu a day earlier than normal and confirmed a theory of mine. All that was left now was to enhance the proof and prepare the fakery. I could just go to sleep for now. I'd have to do things right after the night cleared, so I'd set a timer and just nap rather than sleep. There. Good night. Alright, here we go. Easily woke up at the sound of my alarm. Honestly, the hard sensation in my back made it nearly impossible to sleep. Even so, though I'd wake up in the morning sun, just didn't come here. The settlement was right between two mountains, so of course I wouldn't get my sunlight. Still sleeping, but this was the fated day. Drank down the rest of the bottle and got some calories out of some sweetbread. Yeah. First, I had to take care of my wounds. Surrounded by dim light, took off the handkerchief on my right hand and treated the festering wound. Wanted to wash it off with some water, but I felt like the hole in the middle of the cliff might not have been the only reason why the stream was considered corrupted. Washed off the water from a new bottle instead. Put some more disinfectant and a fresh bandage on it. It had been messed up while I had been climbing yesterday. Then grabbed my friend, the headlamp, checked whether the stopper, potential lifesaver, worked properly. With that, I was ready. Upon climbing up to the hole, I went inside and turned on the lamp. I then tried going into the upwards slanted hill. Some distance, the hill started slanting down. Might have been done to prevent rainwater from flowing in. In the inside, it's like I expected. Pile of fist-sized stones. I had to remove them all. It had to be possible. It had been done by humans, after all, and a whole 6 centuries ago, too. Though I feel kind of bad about it. What was I about to do was basically tomb raiding. But then I had a thought. Someone who was about to kill God had no business talking about irreverence. To make the job easier, I took out a small shovel from the stuff I brought. I bought a collapsible bucket too, but it didn't look like I could use it. After thinking for a bit, took out all the waterproof inner bags from the backpack to transport the stones into the outer bag. Filled the bag with lots of rocks, crawled outside and turned it upside down. This was effective and didn't put much strain on my bandaged wounds. Though hard labor with a tight space certainly wasn't easy. Lack of sleep and fatigue were getting to me, and I wasn't sure I was working fast enough. Wanted to go home after repeating this just 3 times. Even so, I did my best. Wanted to go back after all. Come on, ancient people. So how much did you have to bury it under? I know it's to prevent a god from escaping, but can't you at least consider the archaeologists who would look for it? Oh yeah, not likely. Yeah, I'm talking to myself more. Was it a sign of something dangerous, or was I safe as long as I recognized it myself? It'd be bad if I started hearing the voice of God or Psycho Chiemi. Considered singing something, but stopped when I almost began singing Prayer to Shania. That felt like a one-way trip to madness. Weird, I didn't know if it was because of what I was thinking, but I began hearing auditory hallucinations. It was a crying girl. The return point was now Sunday morning. The moment Mako wandered in had become the new routines. I still didn't see a way out. Yeah, that would be Mako. It came back to me, though it wasn't like I had completely forgotten it, just slipped my mind. This was the morning when Mako wandered in. What was I to do? She cried here. Someone who heard her would come over, surely. If that happened, they'd find my stuff in me as well. I'd look at a weirdo doing weird things when a girl at my side did that. What was up with that role? Was I some sort of kidnapper about to bury a child? I had to secure her myself. Anyway, mission start. Jeez. Poor Mako. My leg hurts. I'm so hungry. How far do I have to run? Where's the doggy? The wolf is so scary. Hey. Huh? Called out to you. But what do I do now? Who? A local. A local? This seems familiar. No, my name is Haruaki Fusaishi. That's it, Haruaki Fusaishi. Close enough. No. Close enough. Fine, call me that. Where'd you get that "you" from, anyway? Yuki felt like some sort of anonymous message board mascot's name. Are you hungry? My face. Did the joke not work on modern children? I won't eat people, they're not tasty. My joke missed the mark so badly, I myself became flustered. Okay, then have some food. Come here. Yay? Are you a wolf? No. That reminded me that she was afraid of wolves that were completely unrelated to the ones in Fujiyoshi. Well, I wasn't one of those wolves either. But if I said that, it'd make things more complicated later. I'm not the wolf you're afraid of. Really? Yeah, I'm a good wolf. Poor kid. Yeah, that's what happens when you don't eat properly. Eat slower, Mako. Here, wipe yourself. Is that me? Oh, sorry, what's your name? I don't know. Yeah, she didn't know her name where she lived. So you're a lost cat, huh? Cat? That's the animal to think about when someone's lost, right? I'm not a cat. Right, you're saying that, so I guess you're a sheep. Sheep are successes. Successes? What? And talking of sheep reminded me of her. What the hell is up with her? It's bad to not know your name. You can call me Mako. I guess I will. You're a good wolf. Yep, I'm a good wolf. Bad wolves need to be killed. Yeah, wait, no! What a scary thing to say. What kind of environment has she grown up in? Mako, you shouldn't say kill that easily. I shouldn't? Yeah, killing is a scary thing to do. Scary is bad. Good girl. Instead, you should say that you're going to beat them up. Beat? Yep. What's up with the baz anyway? Cattle. You don't get it? Strange? Well, like something you don't see every day. Don't see every day. Lost children are like kittens. I'm lost. Yep, most men all fall for lost kittens. Oh my god. The cat, alright. It's fine, don't force yourself. You're strong enough you can be whoever you want to be. It's hard. Sorry. Conversation went off the rails. Probably shouldn't have brought that up to a child. But also, would I also become a father to someone someday? What a scary thought. Are you full? Yeah. Good, I just ran out of bread. Wait, you ate it all? Oh, I didn't leave any for you? It's fine, I already ate. Sorry. You're a good girl, huh? Good girl? Yeah, it's a good thing. You do whatever you want, but in the end, everyone forgives you. Huh? But you shouldn't be too good either. God will notice you. Too good is bad? Yep, you should be a good girl who's a bit bad. Good girl who's a bit bad. Yeah, this is fun. Hi, Chiemi. Huh? She popped on over, sneaked in here basically, and she has a knife in her hand. She slipped on some rocks and was all wet. In her hand there was a knife. Hold on. Are you the Chiemi that overcome by despair to the point of wanting to kill me? Huh? What? Yeah, I figured I'd kill you with a little splash this time. Killing is bad. Yeah, it's bad. Huh? Huh? What's all this? Wait, why are you here at this time? And with Mako too. Wait, why did the starting point reset? Huh? Calm down, Chiemi. Huh? Oh. Oh yeah, the fun times are over. She disinterestedly threw the knife into the Serenator. It's dangerous. It'll be useless this time anyway. It won't. Why? Because this is the final loop. Her eyebrows furrowed with confusion and worry. Oh, sorry, I'm not talking about something complicated. With her? Yeah. Yeah. Why am I being menaced? Because you don't understand women. Wait, that's just, huh? It's fine. I'll play over here. Try not to get swept away. I really wanted to keep watch over her. This is probably my last chance to meet up with Chiemi. Good act needs some hired hands after all. So why were you showing your darkest parts to Mako? It's just fun. I mean, it freaks me out so much of actually saying again. Anyway, there's something we gotta talk about. See you as casual as always. Anyway, answer my question. What do you mean by last loop? Exactly that. Things happen, and this is our last one. And with it, we have one final chance. Mess this up, my memories will probably start to reset, just like everyone else besides you. I'll forget you and become a guy who crashed his bike and end up in the village. What? Huh? Wait. That's just... No, I don't want that. I'll be all alone again. Won't happen. Why? Because I'll solve everything this time. What? You're overdoing it. Acting too cool. I didn't mean to. Anyway, you've watched too many movies and TVs. How many hundreds of times do you think we failed? There's no way to work out so easily. It's not easy. You've already worked really hard. It's actually the conclusion of all the other loops that failed. Don't you think we have the qualifications and skills to finally end this? Skills? Yeah. Need your help to finish this. As if I could help you. I've spent all my time looping meaninglessly and just getting in your way. You're holding some kind of grudge? What are you, my ex? That's what I think, yeah. Well, I couldn't deny that we're kind of close at a bunch of deaths ago. You have what it takes. You have vengeful defiance against God, built up over countless loops. That'll be settled too, of course. Huh? Your anger and resolve will end it. Shoot God with this. Took out some ammo and handed the store. Huh? 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 When? Where? Who? You'll know when the time comes. Saw off your shotgun and wait until then. Wait, I don't get it. Explain. What are you doing here? Can't say that now. Why? Can't say that either. After all, she was from Yasumizu. That made her an enemy. In fact, she was the enemy in this case. She didn't have to know what I needed to help for my act. It'd be bad if she did. Why? Why is she the enemy? Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to fulfill her role in this. Though I know I probably shouldn't be the one to say this, but just this one time. I want you to believe me. That's my final request. I looked into her eyes. She closed hers, thought about it for a bit, shook her head to shake something off, and nodded. All right. Thank you. Just so you know, pulling that off is pretty hard. When I do, I'd like a good reward explanation. Well, that's a familiar line. Been so long ago that you forgot? No, you got me there. What would you want for a reward? Can you introduce me to a nice man? Leave it to me. Heh. Guess I'll just wait and see what happens next. Can you take Mako to Yasubizu too? So that wasn't your last request at all. That's an extra one to that. Oh well, I was the one who found her last time too. Why'd you come to Serenega? Couldn't find my place. Hey, don't make me say that. Sorry, no one else will come here, right? Right, maybe Rikako to pay respects. Still, she should be busy with Mako today. Okay, then there's no problem. What's that rope? The secret. Alright, you villain. Is that all? It is. Mako, come with me. Our conversation ended there. She soon dragged Mako away, so I said see it, but neither of them even looked at me. Resolve, resolve. I had to introduce her to a good guy after all. I had another actor now. All that was left now was physical labor. Alright, I'm gonna call it for tonight. This is going on a lot longer than I had thought, so I will continue this on the next time I stream. It's not gonna be tomorrow. I'm gonna be working late, but yeah, we have a lot of things going on, so we're good on all that. So, now that we're done with that, I'd like to thank y'all for coming. So until next time, this is Faramir signing out. Good night.